Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV, the fourth round of V8SCOPS for 2025, taking us to virtual Florida, to the concrete and the bumps of Sebring International Raceway. A very competitive championship this year. We're still not entirely clear on who is going to be on top by the end of it. And, well, we're only 4 rounds into this very long, year-long championship. Bring it to you all live here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Kick. It's me, Reese Gardner, with Cameron Dance alongside me. Joining me in the comms box for the first time in a very long time, Dan Yeaman behind the scenes, handling production. Cam, Sebring is just a legendary circuit. It's hosted racing since the 1950s, and it's been through quite a few changes over the years, but it is ultimately one of the best circuits for racing in these supercars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those all-time favorites and all-time classics when it comes to motorsport and V8SCOPS in general. We've seen many good battles and many highlights as well of this series at this very racetrack. So it's one that when we come back to, we know it's going to be a good night and it's going to sure be a lot of good racing, that's for sure.
Indeed, Sebring right here, the former US Army Airfield Hendricks. It's the current layout consisting of those 17 corners, big bump at the apex of Sunset Bend. You want to try and get yourself a good exit out of turn 5 for an overtaking opportunity at the hairpin. You can make big passes at Sunset Bend as well. Regardless of where things turn out over the race, you're sure to be entertained around here, and we have got split 2 action first up. 19 laps on the cards, with the grid set by pre-qualifying order, a 50% fuel tank restriction with 1 compulsory pit stop between laps 2 and 18. That's all you need to know to go into the first race of the night, and the grid is as follows. Up on the top of the grid, we have Brett Loxton, who's managed to put down some solid times there in pre-qual. James Shastanoff is rounding out the first row of the grid here. We have Brock Thompson making a start here. Usually see him in the dirt scene. First time I've seen him in a supercar. Billy Mole starting alongside him on row 2. Russell Pepperell starting 5th alongside Ryan Jones in P6. And then Troy Stonestreet will start 7th alongside Harold Stadler on the 4th row of the grid. Ryan Mueller is going to start in 9th place, and Angus Lawford will round out our top 10. We move on to William Morgan in 11th, Kenneth Latter alongside on row 6, Matthew Pluck starting lucky 13th alongside Jeff Thomas, Jared Lamprey in 15th with Alan Dawson alongside on row 8, Paul Young and Scott McKenzie are 17th and 18th. The top 20 rounded out by Stephen Banks and Justin Wallace. 21st place, Sean van der Meulen with Stacey Boyd starting alongside. Behind them, Vincent Skilbeck and William Brown on row 12. Jamie Dyke and Will Buchanan, 25th and 26th. Row 14 is Tim Nicol and Tyler Strallo making his debut in V8SCOPS. Tyler Blackburn and Zach Vlasblom will round out our top 30 drivers. Jace Douglas in the 099 starting 31st alongside Robbie Tomei, with Benjamin Smith in 33rd and Eli Donaldson in 34th. Jared Eccleston starting 35th. Harry Dodds joining him on that row, with Andrew Ritchie and Hayden Sell, who's brought in as a reserve here tonight for the start of the race. That's 38 cars on the grid here, Cam. Got 30 seconds left before the green flag drops. Let's go.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a pretty good race with the field that we've got tonight, to be honest. So going to be all hands on deck, that's for sure, and there's certainly going to be a lot of competitive drivers looking to try and get that spot into split one.
Yep, everybody lining up here on the start-finish straight, and actually the exit of Sunset Bend as well. You see the drivers all the way up the pack there, having to negotiate a little bend on their way to the finish line. Reminder there of the format. We have 19 laps on the cards. There is a compulsory pit stop, but it will open at the end of lap 2. Let's see what they can do to avoid dramas here in the opening laps as the revs rise. Brett Loxton versus James Chastaneuf and the Mustangs on the front row, and we are away. That is a great launch there from Chasty, and Brett Loxton will lose the lead before they even get to turn 1. Chastaneuf immediately moving across to block his advances. Ryan Jones on the outside there. Understeer from Russell Pepperell gets into Ryan Jones, and they both run wide out of the first corner. Going 2, sometimes 3 wide in the middle of the field here. Brock Thompson already making those moves there to try and find his way back up to 3rd. But Billy Mole has had a bit of a lightning start as well. Speaking of lightning, we have Benjamin Smith already up 9 positions in 24th, side by side for 3rd place. Ryan Mueller versus Russell Pepperell here. Gently does it on your way into the hairpin. My apologies, it's side by side for 5th, and Pepperell is going to win that battle up the inside of the hairpin. Seeing quite a few drivers that have moved around a bit. Looks like down 12 positions for William Brown, down 9 for Alan Dawson. Harold Stadler has had an issue as well in the Orbit drop bear car, and I think that looks like a bit of a dangerous re-entry there.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I think he might have contacted the hairpin with someone. I'm not quite sure who it was, but it didn't end do particularly well for Harold, unfortunately. Looks like it's going to go away okay, but race control will definitely be looking at that re-entry.
Yeah, certainly will. Harold Stadler starting in P8. And unfortunately, the exit of the hairpin did not go his way. It looks like Matthew Pluck made contact with him on the exit of the corner. But for James Chastaneuf up the front, the start has gone just about as well as it could here, out of Le Mans and down the Ullman Straight to go to the final corner of the racetrack. James Chastaneuf has managed to hold off the likes of Loxton there over the course of the lap in the top 2 already, with a solid breakaway over the rest of the field. Billy Mole will be happy with his form thus far, with managing to grab that 3rd place. And first lap complete, we can get an eye in as to the drama that has been experienced by a few drivers here. So Alan Dawson's still down a lot over the course of the first lap. 8 positions lost. 10 positions lost for Stacey Boyd and William Brown. They're down in 32nd and 34th. I think they got involved in some of the dramas out of the hairpin too. Skilbeck down 13 places. He had some dramas on lap 1 too. And we obviously saw what happened to Harold Stadler there. Some big contact out of the hairpin with Matthew Pluck. But now the race gets into its rhythm, Cam. We haven't seen any trace of the safety car yet. And it looks like it's going to be green flag for the next few.
Yeah, so far so good for the front lot and also most of the field as well. Was an incident turn 1 as well that caused a couple of drivers to fall down the order, and then Dawson with a bad start looking back at it. So been a few movers and shakers in this field so far. The top 2 have definitely broken away though. They've already got a nice comfortable gap to the rest of the field. But with that said, it's going to be, could very quickly well change if they end up burning their tyres up. So they do have to be a little bit careful that they don't charge away too quickly and end up sitting ducks later on. So they'll just have to be careful with those tyres and make sure that they're getting it nice and further into the stint.
So As we find our way to a little recap of what went on the first lap, I think we should have a look at what happened to Harold Stadler at the hairpin. The biggest incident that we saw out of the first runnings here. Down at the hairpin, we see Stadler trying to go up the inside of Pluck there in the KSR Mustang, but on the exit of the hairpin, it's that little S-bend on the way out. Stadler obviously trying to not run across the track on the exit, but Matthew Pluck was holding his line there, and I think Race Control might view that as a racing incident. You'll see it happen here. Stadler just alongside, but yeah, that's far from ideal, Cam. We're going to get a view from Stadler as well to see what happened.
Yeah, it did potentially look like there was a little bit of an echo, but this will tell the true story on board here with Stadler to see what happens. And yeah, it just did look like wheel-to-wheel contact, and then unfortunately hard into the wall on the exit of the corner as well. So that's damaged the rear clip on that car, unfortunately, and not looking too happy is the rear of that Orbit Drop B Motorsport. And that rejoin didn't particularly help the front either. So lucky to get away with that one, but yeah, he will certainly not be happy with that incident, that's for sure.
There's been big drama on live pictures as well. We should queue up another replay with Scott McKenzie, but we'll see what happened to Vincent Skilbeck here on lap 1. Just got some side-to-side contact in turn 1 and was not able to turn in for the first corner there, and the dramas just continued for Stacey Boyd. Keep an eye out on that Mustang down at the hairpin. Looks like Rob Tomei. That's what... oh, dear. Getting whipped around at the hairpin himself. That's far from ideal for the number 15 for Alliance Sim Racing. And Tim Nicol also having dramas here in split 2. That's a big whack there from the Misfits Camaro of Scott McKenzie. And you'll see McKenzie try to slow down here, but he had 2 cars right up on him here. It just resulted in further drama. Alan Dawson and Zach Vlasblom got involved in that one.
Yeah, and it all stemmed from what I can gather a slowdown in the previous few corners as well. So that's all just been a matter of what's gone on a couple of laps ago, and that's a car in the wall.
Jesus, it's absolute carnage here. Tim Nicol, once again, with a big issue there, and it looks like that's on the exit of Tower Turn.
He's done that on his own as well.
I think he might be dealing with some damage from his previous coming together. Well, the guys at the front are far away from that. Brett Loxton starting to gain here on James Chastaneuf, setting roughly the same lap time. Ryan Jones has also moved back up into 6th place. He passed Russell Pepperell at Sunset Bend. Fastest car in the top 10 that time by was Brock Thompson, running a 206.659. But we are on already in the battle for the lead, and this is when we might have to start talking about strategy here, Cam. Track is reasonable for Sebring, 46 Celsius with the occasional cloud passing over the circuit, as you can see. It means that the tyres, they're still not going to last particularly long, but should last a bit longer than they did in supports last night with 59-degree track temperature last night. It was absolutely insane. It's looking a little more reasonable here. Oh dear. Oh no. It's just gone on for Alan Dawson. And he stopped on the front straight. We might see a safety car out of this, Cam. That might be the opportunity for drivers to jump into the pits.
Yeah, I'd say that's potentially going to result in a safety car, and he's also done that all on his own as well. He's just clipped the outside wall as he exits the final corner, and it's just caught the rear end, and around he went and into the wall.
Safety car has been called for this stricken Camaro at the start-finish line. And what Cam just described, you are about to see in front of you.
Oh, Nicol off as well.
Well, wrong lap. So Dawson was involved in the incident at Sunset Bend on the previous lap, but yeah, he just caught the end of the tyre bundle there, as you say, out of the final corner. And that's massive hits to both ends of the car. The engine completely destroyed from that. An easy mistake to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're pushing so hard and you're trying to use the absolute maximum amount of track you can right out there. So very, very easy thing to do. We saw Madison Down do that some time ago as well, doing the exact same thing, just catching that tyre bundle and ending up in the fence. So very, very easy thing to do, even for the best of the best. So unfortunate there, but it is what it is. And pretty much the entire field has decided to come down into the pits to get some new tyres and some fuel.
Jared Lamprey there, the big exception. He's stayed out and is going for, I guess, a bit of a different strategy thing. He's passed the safety car as well. I think there might be some kind of miscommunication that's going on there. Maybe didn't realize that the safety car was there on the exit of one. He slowed right down to allow the safety car back by. But pit stops have been complete for all of our leaders. Shastanov has remained in the lead. Looks like a raft of stops that have just, put the minimum amount of fuel required and changing tyres as well. Shastanov and Loxton remaining where they are. Ryan Jones has gained a place or two. He's moved up into effective 4th through that pit cycle. Well executed there.
Yeah, and Thompson with a big loss as well. Was P4 prior to that stop, and now he's all the way down in P12. So, but a couple of people losing positions, gaining positions. So potentially some tyre strategy going on, potentially some fuel strategy as well. Just trying to not take 4 tyres, or maybe try and underfuel the car just that little bit extra, just to try and give you that extra track position.
I think the big difference maker for Thompson was the lane time, because his pit stop was only 11 seconds, which is roundabout what everyone else did. But his lane time was 40 seconds, where we were seeing about 35 seconds for everyone else. So there must have been some kind of issue for Thompson getting into the box, maybe overshooting it, or maybe getting a poor exit out of the actual pit stall. So regardless, It has put him back quite some way.
Yeah, just quickly went and had a look, and he did indeed overshoot his box, so that's what's cost him quite a few positions, and overshot it by quite a bit, quite 1 or 2 pit boxes as well, so he had to reverse quite some way just to get back into the correct box, and as a result he's lost quite a few positions, so a bit of work for him to do in this next stint, but I'm sure he can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Had enough experience watching Brock Thompson on dirt that I know he's quite a talented man, and he should be able to pull off something nice here. But very curious for Jared Lamprey, Harry Dodds, and Rob Tomei, our 3 drivers who stayed out of the pits, get to the front of the field. Every time I see this happen, I can't help but wonder, why wouldn't you come into the lane here? But obviously they have different plans behind that we can't quite see. Of course, Tomei, I think, was involved in one of the incidents on lap 1 as well at the hairpin, so maybe he's just trying to minimize the damage from that in the short term. All 3 of them will have to come into the pits at some point, but they'll be probably hoping for another safety car maybe, and that might minimize their time loss.
Yeah, you'd have to think they're all banking on hopefully another safety car to get them home in some easy fashion rather than having to pit under green. So it'll be fascinating to see what they do. Whether we get another safety car, that's yet to be determined, although with all the carnage we've seen so far, it would not surprise me if we got another one. So it would just be a matter of seeing what happens and seeing as to whether we get another safety car or not. And with that said, we've actually seen 2 of them come down onto the lane as well.
Yeah, so Tomei and Lamprey have both come into the lane there. Harry Dodds remaining out front there in the Project 36 Camaro. Well, pit stop will be complete for them, and we'll see what kind of times we get from these guys. And that's a reasonable stop there from Tomei, just shy of 12 seconds. Lamprey as well, roughly the same, but maybe a little bit longer. They will make their way out sort of more towards the rear of the field here. But it could be worse for the two of them. They actually filter out round about where Benjamin Smith is. Oh, but they came out when they shouldn't have, unfortunately. It looks like a bit of an error for...
closed, yeah.
Yeah, the pit exits were closed. That's something that that I actually haven't seen violated by anyone yet. Ever since AOG took over the running of V8SCOPS, some new rules were introduced or sort of massaged from the previous regulations concerning the pit exit being closed under safety car. And... yeah, drivers, by and large, have followed that rule, but they ended up exiting the pits when the field was still touring by pit exit, and that is a big no-no. They're probably going to be smacked with a massive penalty.
Yeah, or at least drop to the end of the line as well for violating that penalty. I can't quite remember exactly off the top of my head what the penalty is, but they'll get at least an end of line, if not a drive-through or something for violating that rule.
Not good. Rob Tomei and Jared Lamprey, they will be ruining tonight. It has not gone well for them so far. I think quite a few drivers will be hoping for a bit better out of this one. Harold Stadler, for example, he's still all the way at the back of the field. But looks like, crucially, still on the lead lap, question mark? I think potentially he's just avoided going another lap down when repairing the damage in the pit lane. Safety car's coming in this lap, and so race control doesn't have much time to figure out what sort of penalty to slap Lamprey and Tomei with. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Harry Dodds will lead us to the restart here at the end of lap 6.
I do have to wonder how well Harry Dodds is actually going to hold on to this, because while it's not a couple of laps difference in tyres compared to those around him, obviously the newer tyres are going to have a much larger advantage in terms of their drop-off points. So how long Harry Dodds can keep this lead for is going to be fascinating, but he's definitely going to have to work for it once they get a few laps in, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think around Sebring, the tyres do tend to go off pretty significantly. And with the track temp being what it is, we can expect the tyres to go off pretty substantially. But we'll find out just how long they can last here in the hands of Harry Dodds, with everyone behind him on fresh tyres as the race restarts. Green flag, and Dodds weaves his way down the start-finish straight. Already, Ryan Jones trying to make up positions here. He tried round the outside of Billy Mole at turn 1 there. You see them in the background, and oh, man, this is going to be interesting. Ryan Mueller taking advantage and making a bit of contact with Jones there, getting around the outside of turn 3. What a move.
Yeah, very, very good move. Didn't quite pay off the way that Jones would have hoped, I don't think, to try and get around the outside, and then he had to go defensive into turn 2, and then as a result, it all came all undone for him, unfortunately, so he's lost a couple of positions there, but he's still trying to get by the car ahead of him. He's trying his best. He's all over the back end of it, but it's just not quite working out for him, unfortunately. Struggling a little bit drive off the hairpin as well there.
That DPR Racing Camaro certainly looks quick. Harry Dodds, meanwhile, has already lost the lead. James Chastaner filtering back into the P1 position. Brett Loxton will be concentrating hard on trying to get by Dodds here, because remember, Loxton started on pole for this one. That means that he ran a better lap time in pre-qualifying than Chastaner did. And on race pace, Brett Loxton was incredible in the supports race last night, so definitely knows his way around here, has some great pace, but now he's stuck behind Dodds, who's on those old tyres. So you want to waste as little time as possible here and avoid Chastaner skipping away. But it kind of looks like Shasty's already done that.
Yeah, if Chastanov's smart here, use this little bit of a buffer that he's got with Dodds Dodds holding up Loxton at the moment, but looks like Loxton has centered up the inside, got a better run with those newer tyres in his bike, so that gap going to start to come down, although Loxton runs a bit wide and Dodds going to get back up the inside, should get the drive though, will Loxton around the outside, and it looks like Harry Dodds might actually get done by two of them on the way into turn one if he's not careful, is Billy Roll coming down to look up the inside. Not quite enough an overlap though.
Yeah, not quite. Chastanerf down to quickest lap of the race so far. Into the 2:05s. And now Ryan Mueller, stuck in the midst of all of this, sees the opportunity open there behind Billy Mole, but not quite able to get it done. Hard to make those passes at turn 5. Have to wait for the hairpin to really get it done, and it looks like Ryan Jones might have another chance here. They move out of line there, and Mueller still going to go for the move here on Mole, but he's just not getting that overlap that he needs. The braking zone for the hairpin is so tough. It basically changes every single lap. There's no real sort of one braking point for that corner, so you're going to be seeing drivers try a lot of different things there.
Yeah, he's definitely got pace as Mueller by the looks of it. As a dive up the inside and further back, not quite going to pull the move off as William Morgan, but he had a red hot go at it at least. But Mueller definitely looks like he has the pace over Billy Mole. He might be able to get the pass done this time around if he's smart enough on the way through Sunset Bend. But Ryan Jones harassing that rear end of him all over the place. And now Ryan Jones going to look around the right hand side the long way around, get a little bit of contact, and he's going to lose another position if he's not careful.
Yeah, Ryan's really involved in it here, isn't he? And I am speaking of Jones, not Mueller. But if anything, I'd say both of the Ryans in this particular circumstance are really getting amongst it. Single file down the back straight of named, of course, for Alec Ullman, the founding father of Sebring. Change of lines for Billy Mole there through Sunset Bend. He's trying to angle for that straighter exit and get some momentum here on Harry Dodds, who's still managing to hold on to third in the midst of all of this. There's a move to the inside there from the 66, and Mole diving at turn 1, but he's gone too deep, and that leaves the door open for Dodds to take the position right back at the exit.
Yeah, luckily not going to lose the position to Mueller either, but there's a number of cars behind him that are looking very, very racy at the moment, so he has to be a little bit careful about where he makes his moves and how he does his moves as well, because he doesn't want to lose positions to those behind, as there's been a bit of a check-up behind them as well.
Quite the check-up. Seems like some big gaps forming in the field now, and Russell Pepperell at the head of all of that chaos. It looks like Morgan and Latta going side by side there in the foreground, as race control have made a decision regarding Jared Lamprey, and I expect the same is going to be true for Rob Tomei as well. A drive-through penalty for exiting those closed pits. The fighting continues behind Kenneth Latta versus Brock Thompson now behind this pack. Things are starting to really close up in multiple places in the field here. Harry Dodds on the outside there in the Project 36 Mustang finally loses the position to Billy Mole, Ryan Mueller, and Ryan Jones. And Latta with a big moment there on the exit. That's turned Brock Thompson around.
Yeah, just unfortunate there. You got a little bit of contact from behind, and as a result, Thompson's ended up just being clipped on the way by. So that's resulted in them in the wall. He's managing to just get it back up and going, but that was very, very hectic, that little battle package. You did have to wonder at some point when it was going to all come undone as well.
Yeah, that's just hard racing that's gone a little bit too far, unfortunately. Latta was quite involved there with Thompson, and if anything, there might be a little bit of payback or something like that in terms of Thompson, because he actually half-turned Latta in Tower Turn. Meanwhile, Vincent Skilbeck is the next driver to get a black flag from race control for contact with Stacey Boyd in turn 1. We saw that on the replay earlier. So he will tour through the pit lane himself. Drive-through penalty for the 091, who's definitely had some difficult runnings this year in Split 2. Kenneth Latter here, meanwhile, maintaining 14th after the unfortunate coming together with Brock Thompson. And he's right in the middle of this very close fight. Up ahead of him, Jamie Dyke and Matthew Pluck fighting hard over at 12th place, and Russell Pepperell just up ahead making a move. He's put himself past Harry Dodds now, and that number 981 is falling down the field. William Morgan also getting past him there.
Yeah, another one off the rank, unfortunately. I'd say those tyres are starting to really hurt on Harry Dodds' car, and as a result, he's falling down the field quite quickly, as this little battle here is pretty intense. They've sorted themselves out, but yeah, those tyres are definitely going to start hurting now with the difference in what everybody's got around him. So he's going to have to start thinking about either pitting, or he's going to have to just press on and just hope that he doesn't lose too many more positions.
Had another issue further back in the field, this time for Eli Donaldson. Caught the grass on the way into Collier at turn 10. Fortunately, no one else was involved in the incident, but Donaldson has lost a ton of positions, now down to 30th. He's still up 4 places from where he started, though, so not over for car 180 there. On the headlight flashes, Ryan Jones. He's starting to get a little frustrated, I think, not being able to move forward like he wants to.
Yeah, I'd say Ryan's getting a little bit fed up at the moment with the Ryan in front of him, the battle of the Ryans. It's not going the way of Jones at the moment. He's trying everything he can to possibly try and get his way on by Mueller, but just can't quite seem to get the drive off the corner and can't quite seem to get up alongside enough to get by as well. So he just needs to be a little bit patient here. Maybe think about what he can do to try and potentially get on by. Maybe just sit behind, save his tyres, then look at doing a later move in the race when he's got some spare tyre underneath him while Mueller doesn't. So it's going to be all about thinking long-term gain here rather than short-term, and seeing if he can potentially get another position.
Meanwhile, Sean Vandermeulen has gotten an iRacing black flag, and not entirely sure what that's for. Potentially for incident limit. Vandermeulen. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh,
unsafe pit entry.
Unsafe pit entry. Oh, he was kind of forced into that, wasn't he? Oh, man, that's just hard luck there for Sean Vandermeulen. Battling ahead between Kenneth Latter and that's the 017 O'Brien Borg. No, Stephen Banks, sorry. Banks lost it on the way out of Sunset Bend, and Vandermeulen couldn't really do much about that. It was either enter pit lane or crash into the wall.
Yeah, he didn't really have many options there, unfortunately, and as a result, he's ended up with a unfortunately timed penalty from what's going on with everything in that corner. So unfortunately, he's ended up with a stop and hold penalty of what's going to be quite a chunky 40 seconds, and a very painful 40 seconds as well, based on the fact that it's an unsafe pit entry. But looking at the front of the field, Chesnoff's really checked out from Brett Loxton at the moment, and Loxton obviously checked out from Billy Mole as well in P3. So the top 2 and top 3 really have checked out a bit, but the gaps are quite large. So it's going to be interesting to see how this little battle plays out. Obviously, Chesnoff quite a bit quicker in the last couple of laps to pull a gap like he has on Loxton. So you have to wonder if Loxton's just maybe playing the long game, looking after those tyres a bit, and maybe just trying to save something for the end.
Harry Dodds finally enters pit lane, and that's going to be everyone having taken their pit stop finally, and that will sort out the field so we can truly say who has gained how many positions over the course of this race. Looks like the hard charger, oh dear, looks like Hayden Sell, I think, might have had a problem, and there is that front end missing for Jared Eccleston, but the car's been like that for a couple of laps now from what I can see. Obviously something going wrong for him a little earlier, but Hayden Sell with that slow run out of the final turn, I'm sure we'll get an answer as to our reserve here and what happened to him. Bit deep
No, he's been made contact. There's the contact, and around he goes, unfortunately. And Harold Stadler, very lucky not to actually collect him on the way by, too.
Yeah. Just saw that myself, too. Jeff Thomas making that contact there, unfortunately. Whether or not race control decides anything regarding that remains to be seen. You could argue a mitigating factor being Cell running a bit deep into the corner. Well, move our attention back to the Battle of the Ryans for P4. Billy Mole not too far ahead. Of course, Split 2 carries the triple golden ticket here. The top 3 finishers from Split 2 have the opportunity to race in Split 1 later tonight if they so desire. So for the moment, Ryan Mueller and Ryan Jones, they're staring right down the barrel of some potential extra championship points to race in Split 1 later. But they have to get out of each other's hair first.
Yeah, they're certainly not doing any favours fighting like they are, as Ryan Jones is up the inside of Mueller at the moment. Is the drive going to be enough off the corner? It doesn't quite look like it's in favour of Jones at the moment, but as we drag race on the way down to turn 1, and who's the bravest on the brakes? It is going to be Mueller, and Jones potentially looked at trying to go around the outside. Oh, on a bit of a touch with the inside wall, and that is going to allow Pepperell to get on by Ryan Jones. Not ideal there at all to touch that inside wall. Wonder if he did get any damage from that. If any, it might have just been lucky enough to get away with nothing. But Mueller has managed to now get the mess that was in his hair out of it, and he can now focus on charging down Billy Mole.
Yeah, did lose a little bit of time, though, defending from Jones into turn 1. Scott McKenzie also coming in for a second visit to pit lane. That's deep there from Jones. My God, that took me by surprise. Pepperell having to open the steering there to let him go. That was a bit of a nasty surprise for everyone involved, I think. But Jones did get the move done.
It was a very, very late move, though, and Pepperell had already committed to the corner side. Wonder if that's maybe going to be a redress from race control, but if not, he's going to be very, very lucky, and he'll be counting his lucky stars, that's for sure.
You can see that Jones is also struggling with the rear end of the car a little bit there through the twisties coming up to Tower, and well, you want to try and look after the rears here at Sebring. You want to try and look after all the tyres, really. It's a circuit with a lot of fast corners and a lot of sharp corners as well. But acceleration out onto the straights is the most important. Battle down for 30th. Eli Donaldson apparently suffering something at the hairpin here. Went a bit deep. Harold Stadler says, thank you, almost. But, oh dear. Yeah, the space, you could argue, was there, but unfortunately Donaldson, I think, losing it a little bit on the exit, and Stadler not quite giving him the space there.
Yeah, it was looking. I could see what Harold was trying to do there, but unfortunately it just didn't quite go the way that he hoped on the exit, where they just came together, and then unfortunately after that it would didn't quite go to plan. So yeah, just opening up the steering a little bit too early, and then as a result it's put him in the wall.
Yeah, very tough break for Harold Stadler. Could have been on for a solid top 10 here today, but from lap 1, it all went so terribly wrong. Well, back up to the battle for the top 5. Pepperell still under pressure from Jones here, and it seems that Pepperell is one of the slower cars in the top 5. He's focusing on defending from Jones here, and that's opened up an opportunity for William Morgan and Paul Young to try and get in on this fight.
Yeah, it's quite the battle pack, is this little one. They've been going at it for quite a lot of laps at the moment. Jones potentially having used his tyres up a bit much with the fighting that he's been doing with Ryan Mueller is not going to have been helping him, and as a result William Morgan's all over the back of him and looking to try and move on forward and get on by Ryan Jones. It could be a little bit of a roadblock at the moment, so they're going to have to try to work together here, and Paul Young is really going to be the Bradbury here if they all end up coming together and he slips on by, so they're going to have to be very, very smart about this. Pepperell not having the greatest of pace at the moment over the last couple of laps, so he'll be trying his bestest to not lose any more positions. Runs wide though, and that's not going to help him. Jones is going to look up the inside and get it done, or is he?
Pepperell holding station. Oh, but Jones just gets it done on the exit. You saw the message flash up at the top of the screen just before. A redress was actually ordered. Jones had to give the place back to Pepperell for the move at the hairpin earlier. So that's one reason why all that time was lost for them. But now Jones at the head of the pack. Pepperell leaving the door open on the inside for William Morgan. Contact, and Pepperell gets shuffled wide. Racing is looking especially brutal at Sebring today.
And he's going to get done by Paul Young as well if he's not careful on the way into turn one. Young looking up the inside. Is he going to go for the move? No, he's not. He's going to decide to just sit station for the moment. So one less position that Pepperell has lost there. Although William Morgan looking a little bit squirrely on the exit of turn one there. So might just start to struggle with the rears a little bit. And Ryan Jones will be a little bit happy that he's got some clean air and decide on focusing to get forward.
Problem is, excuse me, Ryan Jones has quite the gap to make up to Ryan Mueller, who he was battling with before. And there's only 5 laps left in this race. So I don't know if Jones will be able to pull out some crazy freak level pace to catch up. He'll have to rely on a mistake from those ahead to really make up that time. The battle between Brett Loxton and James Chastaneuf at the front of the field has fizzled out just a little bit. Shasty holding on solidly to that lead. And Loxton, I think, trying to focus on looking after the tyres here. Remember, they came in under the safety car, probably came in a little bit earlier than they would have ideally liked to get the right sort of tyre life at the back end of the race. Oh, there's just been a big incident further back. Jace Douglas, Will Buchanan and Stephen Banks. Something's gone on between those three, and Brock Thompson will find his way past Banks, so will Eccleston.
Yeah, that's quite a large incident. There's been quite a bit to digest out of that, because that involves 4 different cars, 2 of which were innocent bystanders.
Yeah, I've just seen what happened. It looks to me like Banks got on the brakes very early for turn 10, and Vlasblom was right behind him. And basically that hit Banks into Buchanan and Douglas. You'll see it happen here on the edge of the hairpin. So look at the car further back there, on the brakes there for Banks, and he just loses it after that hit from Vlasblom. And, well, Vlasblom effectively taking 3 cars out there with that one move. Get the feeling race control won't look upon that too kindly.
Yeah, very, very messy incident. Probably that one that didn't need to happen. But you see there, just caught out by the car braking early in front of him. And then as a result, it turned a 10-pin bowling there, unfortunately. So it's going to be, I'd say, a penalty coming his way.
Yeah, but potentially you could say that Banks just slammed on the brakes way too early. Vlasblom will argue he was brake checked there. But I suppose race control will be dealing with that one for a while. We're not assigning blame to anyone just yet, just observing the sequence of events. Well, Billy Mole holding on to 3rd place here. Ryan Mueller starting to catch him up. Took 2/10 out of him on the previous lap. They're going to have 3 to go next time by. Could be a change for the last of our cars to be eligible for promotion to Split 1.
Yeah, it's looking like there could be quite a nice little fight going on for the final spot on the podium here. Mueller was actually quicker by quite some margin, not on this lap, but the previous lap. So he's definitely got a lot of pace and looks a lot quicker compared to Billy Mole as well. So this battle is definitely not over, and it's going to be very hard fought, that's for sure.
Slipstream for Mueller. Not able to get close enough for a move into Sunset Bend. He'll have to rely on a mistake from Mole, I think. But as we've seen before, very easy to run deep into Sunset Bend, a curved braking zone into one of the most brutal corners on this racetrack, and the exit didn't seem to go too well for Mole either. So he'll be hoping that he can hold on for the next 3 laps. Try and grab that podium here after starting in 4th keeping an eye on positions gain and loss through the field, as you can see that Mueller has definitely been gaining on Mole consistently these last few laps. The hard charger appears to be Benjamin Smith, up in 15th place at the moment, gaining 18 spots from his starting place. He, Blackburn, Vlasblom, and Andrew Ritchie have gained 13 or more positions each. They've certainly taken advantage of the errors, the troubles for others. See the full list of most positions gained there. Ben Smith at the very top. And he's got some good company here as well. Got a Race On Oz teammate with him. Andrew Ritchie, meanwhile, up to P21 as his teammate at Banter Alliance Racing, James Chastaneuf, leads the race. It's going to be another position potentially gained here for Ritchie. Tyler Strallo in the blue Mustang there, letting him go at the hairpin.
Yeah, that's another position gained, luckily for him. So he'll charge forward, have some nice clean air, although I wouldn't guess... I wouldn't say that that's fairly done and dusted, though, as it looked like there might have been a challenge for the position at the next corner, and running wide he is, and it's going to be only just again holding on to that position. So is there going to be a move up the inside here? No, there isn't. So it looks like he's got that position locked in at the moment, but looking back at the front of the field, I wouldn't say this lead fight is over as well as the podium is. Loxton's actually starting to catch up to James Chastaneuf just ever so slightly in the last lap or two with that pace difference that he's got, which is a couple of tenths.
And Shasti having some issues with the rear end on the exit of the corner there. Chastaneuf setting a 207.4 as Loxton sets a 206.9. Big gains there from Brett Loxton. Potentially he was just biding his time after the race went back to green flag. Oh dear, Billy Mole and Ryan Mueller coming together in turn one just about. They stay in the same positions, but they both lost a ton of time as a result of whatever happened before we cut to them. We're about to find out. Oh, wow. Yeah. Dive at turn one from Mueller, and Mole with a big slide recovers it well. And Mueller doing the correct thing there. Just getting out of the throttle, holding the brakes a bit to allow Billy Mole to resume running. He's still going to try and pass him at the hairpin here. Mole running wide. That is so deep from Ryan Mueller. Big slide, huge power sliding out of the corner there. And it looks like for now, third place belongs to Ryan Mueller.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone was at fault there. It just looks like hard racing based on what happened there at the hairpin. So Mueller gains a position out of that. And what that's done also is brought that pack that was behind them by quite some distance all the way back onto the back of them as well. So now this has gone from a 2-car fight for a podium to potentially a 4-car fight for the podium.
Throw Paul Young in there as well. And you have nearly 6 cars here fighting their way through. Well, that's been a nice turn of events for Ryan Jones. Remember a few laps ago we were talking about how much time he'd lost there with the redress on Pepperell, and there was almost no chance that he would have another go at a podium. Well, that's come back to him here on the penultimate lap of the race.
Yeah, it certainly has. All of the drama that's been unfolding in the last half a lap or so with everything that's been going on in front of him. So he'll be trying his best to at least get past Billy Mole. Whether he'll get up to Ryan Mueller or not is yet to be answered, but he's certainly not going to leave anything on the table with not too much longer left in this race as the white flag is in the air.
Yep, final lap already beginning for James Chastaneuf and Brett Loxton. And Loxton took another 2/10 out of Shasti on that previous lap. I don't know if he'll be able to maintain that pace and fight for the lead, but for now we'll keep our eyes on this battle for the podium. Mueller still leading the way there, but a bit of a technical issue for the 553. That's not going to fill Mole or Jones with much confidence.
Yeah, it certainly won't. It won't be filling Mueller with much confidence either, knowing that there's a podium on the line, transferred to split one on the line, and if he loses it to a connection issue, that's going to be the worst thing that could possibly happen. So you'll be hoping that the connection stabilises in the rest of this lap. Otherwise, that's going to be an unfortunate end to his night, that's for sure.
Well, out through Fangio, this right-left sweeper. to turn 10. And the defense is on now for Billy Mole. You can see that Ryan Jones is trying to round them up here. Oh, all of them having some kind of checkup or problem in the turn there. Completely unclear as to who's going to get on the podium. Jones almost had the move at the inside, but Mole is covering it very nicely. I mean, at this stage, they are letting Mueller get away with it. They're going to continue on, though, for a few more corners. The second last turn has been negotiated for James Chastaneuf and Brett Loxton. And Shasty just nailed it as, up the inside goes Jones.
Oh, big slide. He's going to lose 2 here.
Oh, no. All gone wrong for Ryan Jones. He tries to defend from Pepperell. Pepperell will argue that was a block. But out of the final corner, James Chastaneuf and Brett Loxton, as close together as they have been throughout this race. Loxton could not get it done. Chastaneuf wins in split 2. And third will belong to Ryan Mueller. Billy Mole is going to win the battle for 4th place there, with William Morgan being the big gainer on that final lap there, getting past Jones, with all the dramas being suffered by the number 11.
Yeah, Jones only just held on to that position over Pepperell as well. Managed to just get enough drive off the final corner to get that position back with a little bit of argy-bargy as well, just to add into it. So very, very lucky to get away with that position. But what could have been for a couple of these guys, they were looking at a podium and then it all sort of half went out the window in those last 10 or so laps.
Yeah, it really did. Hard racing at Sebring. A lot of drama here in split 2. And plenty of chaos as well. But rising above it all was James Chastaneuf and Brett Loxton. I think they were basically the only 2 drivers here that didn't get involved in some kind of drama over the course of the race. And Shasty will be very happy with that split 2 when he gets a promotion into split 1, as does Brett Loxton and Ryan Mueller. As our final finishers cross the line here. It looks like the last to get across the line is Sean Vandermeulen. We're still waiting on him to complete the final lap here in the 9.5 SimSport number 451. And, well, last car on the lead lap. He had to take a couple of visits to pit lane. One where he spent a minute and 20 seconds in the pit box getting damage repaired, I believe. So, far from ideal for the man who started in 21st and could have taken great advantage of the problems in the midfield. He'll have to settle for 33rd place. And that is split 2 run, done, and won by James Chastaneuf. Loxton and Mueller completing the podium, as we said. Billy Mole finishing in 4th ahead of William Morgan, who took great advantage of the slicing and dicing on the final lap between Ryan Jones and Russell Pepperell. Paul Young finishing in 8th spot, with Matthew Pluck and Troy Stonestreet rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, and then over the page, you can have everybody just outside the top 10. You have Jamie Dyke in P11, Kenneth Latter, P12. Unfortunate with everything that happened to him in the race. P13, P14 and 15 will go to Angus Lawford, Ben Smith and Justin Wallace. The big movers there, as well as Tyler Blackburn. So 3 Race on Oz cars, all just inside that little pack there. Zaku Vasblom will come home in 17th, with William Brown 18th, and Jeff Thomas and Tyler Strello to round out the top 20.
Benjamin Smith, once again, our hard charger, gaining 19 positions in the end. Brilliant stuff. Andrew Ritchie finishing in 21st, with Will Buchanan not too far behind him. Had to wait a few seconds to see Jason Douglas and Stephen Banks crossing the line. Eli Donaldson beating Jared Eccleston, who was dealing with no front bumper for the majority of that race. Rob Tomei and Jared Lamprey, 27th and 29th in the end, split by Vincent Skilbeck. All 3 of those drivers received penalties from race control. Hayden Sell, our reserve, will finish in 30th. Scott McKenzie, Harry Dodds and Sean Vandermeulen, our last finishers on the lead lap, with Brock Thompson and Harold Stadler classed 1 lap down. 2 drivers who really should have been fighting in that top 10. Tim Nicol He spent a lot of time in the pits getting damage repaired, 5 laps down, and we had retirements from Stacey Boyd, Alan Dawson, and looks like Rob Crisdale and Jamie McKnight were our other reserves who were not allowed to take to the start. And that's going to be our field here for Split 2 of V8SCOPS here at Sebring. Split 1 action will be coming up very shortly. For now, we're going to take a little breather here on SimSpeed TV and come back for the heavy hitters, the big...
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com. Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV. Whether you've come from YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Kick, we welcome you to the broadcast once again for round 4 of V8SCOPS for 2025 here at Sebring. Fantastic track, fantastic potential for brilliant racing, and we saw plenty of action in Split 2. I think a few drivers will be less than happy with how it went for them. We'll see if Split 1 brings the same kind of drama. If you're just joining us, I'm Reese Gardner. Cameron Dance is with me in the comms box, and Dan Yeaman is producing behind the scenes. Well, Cam, coming out of Split 2, what can we expect for Split 1? We've got a much longer race for this, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more long-term strategy play out.
Yeah, with this longer race, it's certainly going to be all about tyres, fuel, and just being smart, consistent, and smooth all race long. Making sure you're not making any sort of silly mistakes or any sort of small mistakes as well that might end up hurting your tyres or your race by quite a bit, as obviously we've seen in the past. Margins in this split can be separated by thousands, so even the slightest slip up of missing an apex by a millimetre or having a slight slide because your brake bias was one click too far back is going to make all the difference between potentially pole and potentially even going all the way back down to P30. So it's very, very close, and it's all about being precise and smart here in this large pack with all this long race.
Yeah, another look at the venue for this round of the championship. A 6-kilometre layout here at Sebring International Raceway, built from runways and access roads of a World War II airfield, which is still an active airport today. This is certainly a circuit that will be foremost in the minds of sports car racing fans, holds the 12 Hours of Sebring every year, and what really defines this circuit is the surface. You know, this is one of the few racetracks in the world that is incredibly bumpy, and the track organizers keep it that way on purpose because it's so fundamental to the character of this circuit.
Yeah, and you also have to remember it's not just bumpy, but it's also concrete. It's not your typical asphalt racetrack. It's concrete blocks and concrete the whole way around. So it's very, very slippery as well and doesn't offer a lot of grip. So you have to be very smart in how you apply the throttle and how much you actually need to set up the corner as well, rather than just going, I'm going to turn, I'm going to stab on the throttle and it's going to do everything that I want it to do. It's not going to do that. It's going to do the complete opposite, and you have to be ready for it. So it's definitely a very, very unique circuit, as you don't get these sort of tracks anywhere else in the world at the moment.
Yeah, certainly not. It's a massive circuit here at Sebring, and one that we are really happy to bring to you today. Well, looking into the standings coming into this round of the championship, we've got plenty to talk about. Jake Maloney with the brilliant finish at Watkins Glen last round leads the championship from Jake Burton and Madison down. Madison getting a great finish at Watkins Glen as well. He's only 5 points behind in the Trans-Tasman 1-2-3 at the front of this field. They also have 6th and 7th in the hands of Emily Jones and Brady Myers. James Scott managing to finally get a reasonable finish for 2025. Reigning champion, new team, the Chiefs Esports Club. First couple of rounds didn't quite go his way, but it looks like he's back on the wagon, coming out of upstate New York at Watkins Glen. Zach Rattray White holding on to a top 10 spot in the championship with Kurt Stenberg, the 6th Trans-Tasman car in the top 10, Andrew Dyson rounding out your top 10. So really, what's coming out of this for me is that very tight gap between Burton and Down for second place in the championship. We do have Madison Down here today, and waiting to see if Jake Burton's going to be present for this round. But regardless, we're on for quite a round here and potentially tightening up these standings.
Yeah, these standings at the moment are very, very close, and there's a couple of outliers in there as well, the likes of Kurt Stenberg and Andrew Dyson, and making a TTR headache at the moment. So it's gonna be interesting to see what the rest of the season holds. There's a couple of drivers down the order outside the top 10 that could potentially mix us up later on, and as the season goes on, with various different tracks coming up in various different formats as well to shake things up. So it'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out. But Jake Maloney leading the championship does not come as a surprise. Same with Jake Burton and Madison Down being in the top 3. Those 3 always consistently near the front in the race, and usually in the championship as well. So it'll be fascinating to see if James Scott can be the crasher of the party, and whether he can spice things up a little bit tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. James Scott currently topping the practice session as we move things along here to bring us into this event. It's going to be a 200-kilometer event here at Sebring, a 250k single race, the only one of the season, the longest race of the season outside of the Enduros. Going to be going for 42 laps around here with 2 compulsory pit stops, a 90% fuel tank cap, which is going to force those stops for fuel between laps 2 and 41. And for the first time in a very long time, we're going to have, for a regular round of the championship, all drivers on track at the same time in qualifying. We're not doing the group format here today, because Sebring's just a huge track, and there shouldn't be much of a drama trying to find that space in qualifying.
Yeah, there's plenty of room around this racetrack, and you have to remember the lap times are like over 2 minutes long as well, so there's more than enough room on this racetrack to find a gap, find some draft, or just do whatever you have to get a nice clean lap in because of that long lap. So you're gonna have to be very, very smart here as well, with the fact that it is over a 2 minute lap time as well, because you don't want to get caught out by the fact that you want to do a lap and then suddenly you don't have enough times to set another lap. So you're gonna have to be very, very smart about when you come in for your pit stop to put some new tires on, and when you're also gonna decide to back it off and try and find a draft as well. So that'll be fascinating to see how that all plans out in qualifying.
Yes, I think the big advantage here is that it's not a multi-race server. It is just a single race here. So once the timer hits 0 in qualifying, if you're on a lap, then you'll be able to finish it. It's not going to be a case of a hard cut to the end of the session and, oh no, I'm about to cross the line and suddenly I've been kicked off the racetrack. Well, here in practice, we see the conditions moving to morning, and it's decidedly cooler than what we saw in Split 2, let alone the V8SCOPS support series last night. We only have a track temperature of around about 29 degrees at the moment, so things are looking very grippy out there in practice. James Scott topping the standings thus far on a 203.392. Rattray White has some pretty good form here as well. He's currently second in practice, with Josh Anderson, the Aussie Racing Cars champion for Trans-Tasman Racing, sitting in third.
Yeah, and then you got Brady Myers and Madison Down not too far behind them, and then Ryan O'Sullivan playing the mix in the party at the moment just behind them as well. So there's a couple of people in sort of who potentially are doing qualifying runs, a couple are doing race runs by the looks of it. It's all sort of a mixed order at the moment with a couple of quicker drivers down the order, but We'll see what qualifying turns out. Obviously, your usual suspects at the top at the moment of the likes of James Scott, Rattray White, Anderson, and those sort of drivers. So it'll be fascinating to see how this all pans out in qualifying and who actually gets the best laps in. But that cold track temp really going to be very, very nice for these tyres. And obviously, these drivers at the moment having all that grip. But as the session goes on, it is going to heat up. So they do have to be mindful of that they want to try and get a lap in qualifying early as possible.
Yeah, just coming up to 10 to 9 in the morning in sim time. And as the day wears on, the track will, of course, get hotter. It's only partly cloudy. We're not going to be seeing much trace of clouds or rain here today. So keep an eye out for those lap times to potentially get slower. And it means in qualifying, as the track will continue to heat up through the session, it's going to be supremely important to get your laps in early. Something that we've talked about so many times over the existence of this championship. We practically mention it every single round. The tyres on these cars, they're fantastic right out of the box, but they drop off very quickly. And on a qualifying run, they're only going to be good for a single hot lap, maybe two if you can serve. Throw the ever-increasing track temperature into that, and as cars move around the racetrack, put energy into the surface, the track temperature just keeps going up, and the hotter the track is, the slower the lap times will be.
Yeah, the other thing as well to remember is that the more cars that are running on the track, the more rubber that's going to go down. So it's not only going to get a little bit grippy, but there is going to point where it's going to start to become a bit slipperier as well, because there's no real bite for the tyres. It's just this greasy layer of rubber that the tyre is sliding over. So there is going to be a point where you're going to have to be careful about when that track state does start to get a bit too excessive. So there's a lot of factors that are going to go into qualifying here, and you're just going to have to be smart and think about things very, very methodically if you want to get a nice, clean and fast lap in.
Yeah, the other thing you got to consider is we can actually bring the nature of the surface into this as well, because concrete acts differently to asphalt when it comes to rubber being laid down. Asphalt, of course, is rough and porous, and so the rubber, when it's laid down, sort of sinks into the surface a little bit and bonds very tightly. But on a concrete surface, you see it at NASCAR tracks like Dover, for example, the rubber just sits on top. And so that makes it mighty slippery. So I think we're going to be seeing a bit of that in action here today. Of course, it's not concrete the whole way around the circuit. There are some patches of darker asphalt around the place, as you can see, particularly in the sort of more windy bits of this track that are either purpose-built or based off the access roads. But overall, still a very low-grip surface here at Sebring that's going to be testing the mettle of these drivers and these very powerful cars. So 2 minutes remaining in practice. Last opportunity for drivers to get a time in. And we have Scott Gamble here with a bit of a team switch here. Scott Gamble initially drove for Evolution Racing Team. Then he spent a long time at 9.5 Sim Sports, where he's gotten multiple successes in the V8 Veterans Championship. He has moved back to Evolution Racing Team, and this is the first time he'll be racing in the, I guess you could say, old new colours here at Sebring. Good to see.
It's a very interesting team switch. I know I've heard a few people and a few murmurings saying that they're a bit confused as to how and why this has sort of happened. Everybody sort of remembers that back when he was with Evolution Racing Team and did leave them, that he was sort of looking to focus on himself and being a privateer, and then he did try 9.5, and then the fact that he's come back, everybody's sort of a bit confused as to what's happened there. But at the end of the day, he's found another place that he's happy with, so it's going to be interesting to see how he goes and what sort of improvements he might have with the Evolution Racing Team again. And obviously everybody still at that team that he was around as well, so he'll have a good couple of friends to be hanging out there, that's for sure.
Yeah, getting back into the fold, as it were, and potentially getting access to some nice setup techniques It's one of the big advantages of being part of a team, especially a big successful one like ERT. A wealth of experience tuning these cars and figuring out what makes them tick to be able to get the fastest times down. Also interested to see the 127 machine out there too of Oceane Colangelo. First time I saw Oceane, a young female karter, was in a Formula 4 championship a couple of years ago. She started racing in V8SCOPS here and thus far has been making appearances in Split 2. I believe this may be the first time that we've seen her in Split 1, so making a good case for herself there. A 204.5 in practice. That is good enough for 23rd of the 33 cars in the server at the moment. We also have all 3 of our Split 2 podium sitters in the session as well. Brett Loxton, James Chastaneuf, and of course Ryan Mueller putting their times down. Well, time for qualifying. We move on over a bit later in the day to 10 a.m. and the track temperature has gone up by a few degrees. It's now 33 Celsius. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of lap times we can get down here. There's some big clouds that have come over the circuit in the session transition as well. So potentially we'll be seeing some fast times here in the initial stages.
Yeah, we'll be seeing some interesting time. Not quite sure what's going on pit exit though. There seems to be a bit of confusion amongst the drivers as to what's going on with qualifying. A couple of drivers have towed from what I've seen and they parked it in the exit of pit lane, so might be split qualifying.
No. It looks like there's been a bit of an administration confusion there. It is definitely a single qualifying session with all cars allowed out on track at the same time. So race control might give the drivers a pass who towed on the exit of pit lane. Of course, otherwise, the no escape rule is active in qualifying. You will have to make it back under the pits under your own power. Do a proper in lap and stop in the lane. So as we wait around the sort of outlap for all of these drivers, we will bring you live pictures very shortly. Leading the charge out of pit lane is the number 94 of Corey McFarlane. The Mustang versus the Mustang, you could say. Dylan O'Shea right behind him on the way out as well. They and Jordan Severos will have to make sure that they have the space they need here. Slipstream obviously important at Sebring with the long Ullman straight and of course the front straight up to turn 1 as well. And moving on through, we see them at the end of the straight here into Sunset Bend to begin our first lap around Sebring. We'll stay here with Corey McFarlane and give you a nice tour around this circuit. So across the start-finish line here, which has remained in roughly the same spot for the entire existence of the track. Very fast entry into turn 1. You want to try and run right up against the concrete barriers there on the outside and be careful not to pinch it too tight in the first corner. McFarlane actually ran a little bit wide there. Braking into turn 3, it tightens up on the exit. You want to try and stick to the inside as best you can through turn 4, that little kink, and then turn 5, another late apex corner that tightens up on the way out. Got to be careful not to run over the curb too much on the exit because that'll arrest your run here through Big Bend and down to the hairpin. As I said in Split 2, Cam, braking zone here is often very difficult to pick. There's a lot of bumps there.
Oh, and it's very, very tricky for Corey McFarlane. He gets very crossed up on the way in. He did actually get quite crossed up on the exit of the previous corner as well, coming onto the back straight there, which wasn't ideal. So he's backed out of this one and let Dylan O'Shea on through. John Zabris is still quite far behind, so I'd say McFarlane will either bring it down into the lane and get a new set of tyres, or he'll just sit behind and try and potentially get a draft off O'Shea here. So we'll see what happens, but O'Shea is going to be pressing on to try and see what lap time he can do here. Looking like it's been quite a nice lap so far, nice and smooth, not too overly aggressive with any oversteer or anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, it won't be as fast as it could be, I think, for either McFarlane or O'Shea. McFarlane due to that mistake, and O'Shea potentially having to check up and maybe getting a little distracted. I think that the car behind, Jordan Seberis, just touring around behind them at the moment, just trying to get a banker in. And down the straight they'll come to set the first benchmark times for this qualifying session. I'm sure we're going to be seeing a few seconds being taken out of these times as the session goes on. The sun is now out and the track temperature is rising, 34 Celsius as O'Shea crosses the line, and that will be a 2:04.5 the first time of the session. Seberis setting a 2:05.1, and it looks like no time for McFarlane. He has come into the pits there, decided he doesn't want to set that banker. Sebastian Vandel making his return to the championship for the first time in a while, setting a 2:04.1 at the front of the field, wide out of turn one for him. He'll just let the rest of them go here as the times continue to file in. Our Split 2 winner James Chastaneuf, 12th of the 14 cars that have set times so far.
Yeah, bit of gamesmanship there from Vandal, trying not to give everybody behind him a draft there onto the next lap, so just getting out of the way onto the grass. And O'Sullivan goes to P1 with a 2:04, and then Anderson jumping up to the top as well, so starting to see quite a few times coming thick and fast.
There's the first raft of really big times there. Anderson, Scott, Warboys and Ross rounding out your top four there. Jordan Ross putting in a fantastic time, and well, we'll see what reigning champion number one James Scott will be able to do here to get a bit closer to that 2:03.6 that Anderson set.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who can potentially challenge that time. It's a very, very quick time. It's not actually too dissimilar to what he did in warm-up as well, so a little bit quicker actually. So the track temp not really affecting the TTR car there, but everybody else sort of trying to find their feet at the moment with this warmer track.
Yeah, this is only the initial stage of qualifying. The drivers, of course, may have found that, you know, on their initial run they might have been too close to the car in front and maybe compromised their time, so they'll be looking for a bit more space on their next run. Of course, with this first raft of laps over, we will see another transition around the entry to pit lane. So Rattray White, O'Shea, Seberis, Freer, Sapstead all making their way back into the lane. Scott Gamble putting in a great time for his initial lap there, 11th for the 5:43. They'll jump into the box, get some new tyres on, and away they'll go again for the next run.
Yeah, the next question something that's going to be quite interesting to see is who actually sort of waits for particular drivers to finish their pit stop as well. Whether it is, obviously there's everybody trying to get out of the pit lane as quickly as possible, but there's probably going to be a few drivers who are going to have a little bit of waiting to do, trying to find out when the next person that they want to go on by, because you're obviously going to want to be behind someone that's not going to hold you up. So will not surprise me if we see some weird sort of gaps and some people playing a little bit of draft strategy here with the way that this track and these lap times are going.
So next out lap for everyone. It looks like Anderson, Scott, Ross, O'Sullivan will be making their way back out as well. Good to see Ryan O'Sullivan back out there as well. He's obviously a previous veteran of V8SCOPS who's taken some time out. He is back in Evolution Racing Team colours. ERT has made a nice return here at Sebring.
Yeah, they certainly have, with a number of drivers out there at the moment. Ryan O'Sullivan, not a slouch in the supercar, known for his decent pace in two previous generations of this car. It was very, very quick in the 2014 editions of these supercars, and also the Gen 2s as well. So not doing it too bad for himself in these Gen 3 cars. He's not too far off the pace as well. There's actually not a big improvement, and he jumps 2 or 3 positions potentially. So if he can get the right draft and he can just get the lap together, he might actually end up potentially on the front row. You can see here the big mess that's going on as well. Everybody trying to find their own little bit of racetrack and a little bit of draft as well, making sure they don't get held up. But you just saw there Jake Maloney slot in behind his TTR teammates who are all slotted in behind James Scott, as they know how quick he is. So you're just starting to see the games being played here with the draft and everybody trying to get behind someone that they know they want to be behind.
Now look at the shifting about here on this outlap. Long line of cars making their way down into the final sector of the lap. James Scott letting Dylan O'Shea and Jordan Ross go. He wants a little bit more space here. It's a tough balance to strike. Do you want to be close enough to pick up the slipstream and run the risk of potentially running into the car in front of you if they're too slow? Or do you sit back, don't have the benefit of the slipstream, but you can pick your markers a little bit better and fully attack the lap? And we're about to find out, as leading this line of cars is Joshua Anderson, making their way very wide through the final corner to get their next lap started. Meanwhile, just jumping a bit forward to cars that are on a lap here, the Eclipse Camaro coming into turn 10 of Rattray White. Another big team change that we saw from the previous round. Rattray White really got his run going with Vermilion, with Rattray White first appearing in Eclipse colours at Watkins Glen, formerly of Vermilion. And that sort of team switch is certainly one that is not looked upon lightly. It's a very big switch for a driver who's really on the up.
Yeah, it certainly caught a lot of people off guard. I know a lot of the people at Vermilion were not too happy about that switch, and it's obviously been an interesting switch. He's sort of gained some pace switching to Eclipse, but at the same time it's hard to actually gauge at this very early stage, at least with the team. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens as the year goes on, whether he gels quite nicely with the team. So far he has, but how it's going to progress as the year goes on and as time will tell, we'll see whether that relationship between him and Eclipse lasts or not, and what potentially might become of Vermilion as well as time goes on, with the fact they've lost one of their, if not their best driver.
Yeah, speaking of best, have a look at that from Rattray White, up to third there on a 2:03.8. Magnificent time from the number 17. James Chastaneuf also makes a mild improvement, up to 26th, putting Liam Kerr behind him. So a split 2 winner, putting himself solidly in that top 30 there. I'm curious to note that we have not seen a time from Madison down yet. TTR number 77, no time on the board. So we'll see what Madison will be able to do here. The initial run of qualifying did not go to plan for him, evidently, potentially picking up an off-track somewhere along the way, but I'm sure we'll see him rocket further towards the top in short order. Speaking of Trans-Tasman, Brady Myers just dipping up to second place there. Robbie Gibbs making an improvement for Evolution Racing Team, up to 13th place. Very strong run from Anderson and Myers at the front of the field, though. Yeah,
looks like Madison's. He's done 3 laps so far. One of them will be a pit stop for new tyres, but it does look like he's off-tracked all of his laps so far. So he's not having a particularly great qualifying at the moment. Brady Myers, though, having a very good one at the moment, being in P2. And this little pack that's just coming through at Big Ben now. John Russell probably wanting to try and take advantage of these 2-car draft as well that he's got just in front of him, as Leange not a slow slouch by any means.
Yeah, Rehan, of course, a former race winner himself and one of the younger drivers in this field. A lot of potential continuing in that number 79 Mustang. for Phoenix Racing Team. The Synergy Mustang of Ross putting on a great show thus far. One of the early pace setters in this qualifying session. Seeing quite a bit of offset run strategies here. It's looking like the likes of Anderson, Scott, Rattray White, they're keen to sort of go off strategy to a lot of the other drivers in this session. We've got many cars out on track at the moment, and we're going to be seeing another raft of time start to come in very shortly. Can Leonage improve on 9th? Can Jordan Ross improve on 6th? Keeping up the slipstream, but Leonage is going to go into the pits. So is Jordan Ross. And we are about to see Madison Down, I think, set his first lap time of the session. He's just come in to the final corner now. Committed very nicely. But he's going tight out of the final turn. He doesn't commit to pit lane, though. He's going for that straight late apex sort of exit. And behind him, big slide from Matt Morris. First time down for Madison Down, and that's good enough for 8th spot. Matt Morris then puts himself in 22nd with that slight slide out of the final turn. And with that, we have every driver in the server having set a time in qualifying. Curiously, Ryan O'Sullivan with a black flag to his name. That is, of course, iRacing issued. I get the feeling that might have been speeding into the pit lane.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back and have a look, but I think it's on exit of the pit lane. Because he's only just come to the pit lane now, obviously, to get rid of it. But I think it may have been on the pit exit.
Righto. We'll see if he can sort that one out as Morris will complete his in-lap here following Madison Down. A long line of cars being negotiated there. Drivers on their out-laps just behind them. Headed up by James Scott. We have the Orbit Drop Bear Mustanger Lockhart Brownlee making his way to the front of the train as well. Running off the track is James Scott there. He doesn't want to be at the front of these trains, does he?
It does not surprise me at all that he's done that just to try and get some draft himself, because obviously he's got quite a few cars behind him, a couple of quick ones as well that he'll want to be obviously trying to beat in qualifying as well. So that does not surprise me that's happened.
Yeah. Scott, though, not quite able to touch the heights that Anderson and Myers have, needs another couple of tenths of a second to really get that provisional pole position. 8 minutes left in the session. Will probably be at most one more lap, one more proper qualifying run, I should say, after this one. As it seems Rattray White at the front of this train here is getting not much speed up down the straight. And look at that, Scott is still giving them some space ahead. They always take that wide line through the final turn to get the best run possible on the start-finish straight and carry as much speed as they can into turn 1. James Scott almost touching 260 kilometers an hour on the way into the first turn. It looks like a bit of understeer through turn 1. It's very hard to pick the turn-in point for that, and the car ahead of him suffering a problem there. It looks like the Mustang of Riley Bilson, I believe, that had to jump out there.
Yeah, he just got very, very sideways on the exit of turn 1, so decided to just bail out of that lap and let everybody on by, not impede anyone, including his teammate of James Scott. So he's gotten out of the way, he's going to back out of that, reset and go again on this next lap. So if he wants to get another run, he's going to have to get back to pit lane pretty quickly. But so far, it's been a reasonably good lap from James Scott too here. You can see with the wheel work, not really fighting the car on exit or on entry to get the thing turned and off the corner as well, and hard on the limiter there as well. So very, very interesting to see some different gear strategies and different gear ratios as well amongst some of these teams, just to try and either get some drive or save the tyres.
Yeah, it's not like the real-life series where gear ratios are mandated per circuit for everyone in the field. You have a bit more opportunity for experimentation on the sim. Notice that Corey Preston just rocketed up to P16 with 204.29. Good improvement there from the number 98 machine. We'll continue on board here with James Scott as he finds his way through Le Mans. Really, the lap went wrong for him at turn 1. Maybe just turning in a tad too late or being a bit too aggressive on turn-in, scrubbing the front tyres. It's incredibly important to set up turn 1 correctly because it'll define your entire lap around here. He is going to stick to the inside of Sunset Bend and accelerate out. He's going to abandon this lap. He knew from the outset that it was doomed to not quite be the time that he wanted. Rattray White, though, makes an improvement and gets onto the provisional front row.
Yeah, very, very handy lap there from Zach Rattray White to put it on the front row for the time being. Whether anybody can bump him off, we'll have to wait and see. The track is up to 37 degrees, so it has gotten a little bit hotter since the start of this session. Madison Down completes a lap, stays at P9 though, so no improvement there in positions for him.
Yeah. Madison has typically been stronger on race pace than in qualifying this year, so shouldn't be too much of a marker to worry about. Jordan Ross improving slightly to P5. They'll put Blake Warboys and Ryan O'Sullivan a bit further down the order as well. Waiting for the next opportunity to see a lap time come across the board here. And everyone will be jumping into the pit lane and setting up for their final run now. We have 4.5 minutes left in the session. A lap around here takes 2 minutes to complete. So I think we're going to be seeing the majority of the field go out for one final run here. And we're going to be running a little bit of overtime here to see those final times come up. William Sapstead, one of the drivers who's been steadily improving over the course of the season. Up in P14 at the moment. He should be very happy with his performance.
Yeah, very, very solid performance so far in qualifying. Brady Myers with a big time onto the provisional front row as well. So that was a good lap there, getting some draft from his teammate of Josh Anderson. Anderson pulling into the pit lane right at the very last second. So Brady will be very, very happy there to put it on the front row for the time being. But whether he would get knocked off by anyone is yet to be seen, as there's still obviously quite a few cars off sequence compared to a few others who are about to start their runs and some who have just pretty much finished their qualifying session.
Yeah, I don't see Anderson jumping back out. Or actually, hang on, I think he might be gearing up for a run out of the pits. He should be able to get
back out.
Yeah, he is. He's coordinated here. No, actually, he's escaped back. It looks like he and Kurt Stenberg are trying to coordinate something here. Anderson did pull out just a bit, but had to escape back. Madison Down making a little improvement to P7 and only puts him 0.02 of a second ahead of Ryan O'Sullivan there for 7th on the grid. See what kind of improvements can be made for Down in the final minute or so, but I think with that lap, that's effectively his qualifying session over. He might not have enough time to make it out for another lap.
No, I'd say he's not got enough time. Only 2.5 minutes left on the clock, so I'd say that is session done. Dylan O'Shea improves to P19 as well, I've just seen, so another improvement there for another driver. So we're starting to see a couple of drivers potentially start their laps as they have their final runs here.
Yeah, in order to get a final lap on the board, you need a minimum of about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, I'd say, to really get the time, because Down obviously will have to go back to the pits under his own power, and by the time he does that, there's only going to be about 30 seconds remaining in the session. James Chastaneuf, who won Split 2, out on another run. Liam Kerr trying to improve on P28. He's only just started this next lap here. Corey Preston looking to start another lap here as well. Final opportunity for Preston to improve on what's now P17. Chastity coming to the line, and that's going to be a 3/10 improvement, up from 31st to 26th. Still, though, it looks like Brett Loxton is the split 2 driver who's the quickest over a single lap. He's managed to put himself 22nd. Should be very happy with that. O'Sullivan beginning his final lap here. This is going to be a very hectic last couple of minutes.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's going to be a lot of drivers who are potentially going to shake this order up by quite a bit. A couple of drivers who have also opted to do a second lap as well in this last few minutes as well, but doesn't look like there's been any improvement for them, unfortunately. So we'll see what these drivers who've just come out of the lane are going to do.
Zach Rattray White beginning his final lap as well, so keep an eye out for him at the end of the session. Blake Warboys as well, out for one final run, currently 6th and looking for a little bit more. Ryan Mueller got the podium in split 2, currently sits last of all the drivers, needs to gain about a 7/10 of a second or so to move himself up. Here comes Jake Maloney out of turn 5. Going to be given a bit of slipstream. Checkered flag officially out in qualifying. Riley Bilson bringing into the pits. No further improvement for him. William Sapstead unable to make any improvement on that lap. 10 seconds off. Lockhart Brownlee's going to abandon his final run. Same for Matthew Morris. Liam Kerr, meanwhile, into the pits as well. Preston, I think we're actually going to see a commitment here from him. Out of the final corner he comes, 2:04.29, his best thus far. And he just misses out on improving on it. Didn't go well there for Preston. The track temperature just too high to really make use of it. It's up to 37 Celsius now, and I think a lot of drivers are sensing that, and we might see a few more runs abandoned before the session closes out. Tom Freer is going to commit to the end of the lap here, 13th for the moment, and car behind him there, almost flirting with the wall there. No improvement from him, and no improvement from Ewan Baker either. The drivers are searching for that extra pace, but they're just not finding it.
There's no real improvements been coming through recent in these last dying laps that these drivers have been doing in qualifying, so there's not many drivers left to set a lap, so be interesting to see if anybody can improve. There's a couple of drivers that might improve, but there's a couple that look like they've backed out, so there isn't going to be many more improvements coming through on the timing sheet.
Warboys committing to the line here, and he improves on his time by 1,000th or so of the second, a couple of hundredths actually, and well, that doesn't grant him any extra positions, but he'll be happy that at least he found some pace on the hotter track. Ryan Mueller setting a 2:03, a 2:04.6, 2:04.7 for Colangelo, and Brian Borg missing out on making an improvement there. Dylan O'Shea will commit to the end of the lap here, but it's still quite a slow lap from O'Shea. P20. He hasn't quite found the pace he wanted at Sebring. He's a driver who we've seen fighting in and around the top 10 and even for podiums in the past, but 2025 has not been his year thus far. Looks like that's everyone done for qualifying. And with that, Cam, it looks like we're going to be saying goodbye to you and hello to David Haynes. So thank you very much for joining us here for Split 2 and Split 1 qualifying. Enjoy the race to come.
It's been a pleasure, Reese. It's been a hot minute, but good to get one back on the board, and we might be back here soon enough.
Indeed. David, bringing you in here, 250 kilometers of racing ahead. This is going to be an absolute belter.
Yeah, thanks, Cam Dance. Thanks, Scott Rankin. Good to be here at Sebring, a track I love. It's pretty great, incredibly historic, and I'm sure you've covered across all of that. And we've got 250 Ks of racing to come that should be pretty good.
Absolutely. Reminder of what is to come here. 42 laps on the cards with 2 compulsory pit stops. Fuel tank has been capped at 90%, so the drivers will be getting a little bit less mileage out of those tanks. The window opens at the end of lap 2, closes at the end of lap 41. Grid is as follows. Josh Anderson and Brady Myers. Brilliant times in qualifying, only 300ths of a second separating the TTR duo, locking out the front row. Zach Rattray White for Eclipse Sim Sports will start third place alongside reigning champion James Scott for Chiefs Esports Club. And Jordan Ross will round out your top 5. Got Blake Warboys in the Wodonga Karts and Parts Sim Sports machine on the third row. Madison Down putting the 77 in P7. Ryan O'Sullivan will start in 8th for Evolution Racing Team. The top 10 rounded out by Jake Maloney and Rehan Leonage.
Just outside of that top 10, starting on the 6th row of the grid, Sebastian Vandel and Kurt Stenberg. Tom Freer and William Sapstead on the row behind. And then Sam Blacklock and Robbie Gibbs will be on 15th and 16th of the grid. Corey Preston is in 17th. Scott Gamble in 18th. Tyson Broad 19th. And then Dylan O'Shea will start from 20th.
Riley Bilson was one of the drivers who was struggling to find a time at the end of qualifying. He'll start alongside Corey McFarlane on the 11th row of the grid. Brett Loxton, second place in Split 1 and in Split 2, and the highest of the Split 2 podium drivers to qualify here, 23rd, alongside Orbit Drop Bears Lockhart Brownlee. Brian Borg in car 117 has got Matt Morris for company. The Racecraft and Neuropower Mustangs on the 13th row. James Shastanerf, our winner in Split 2, starts alongside Synergy's Ewan Baker. And then we move through to Jordan Severis and Liam Kerr. Plenty of Mustangs here, rounding out your top 30. Mark Poynton and Ryan Mueller are going to start 31st and 32nd, and our field rounded out by car 127, Ocean Colangelo in the Team Max Boost Camaro. Well, drivers are filing onto the grid now, and plenty of drivers, especially in the Trans-Tasman camp, it seems, who are waiting that little bit longer here to get onto the grid than others. We'll update you on the track temperature. Oh boy, it has shot up 55 Celsius out there on the virtual concrete. Not quite as high as what we reached in V8SCOPS supports last night, David, but the track is mighty toasty and the tyres aren't going to last very long.
Yeah, that is very, very hot. The air temperature to go along with it. It's partly cloudy. Apparently, that Florida sun beating down on the racetrack. Super competitive grid as we just rolled through it. Your top 28 drivers within 1 second of Josh Anderson's pole. And even then, last car on the grid, Oshan Colangelo, only was at 1.12 of a second away from pole. So that's super tight for this size of racetrack. 6.02 kilometers and 17 turns. Multiply that by 42 laps coming, and we're going to cover just over 250 Ks of thrilling V8 racing to come here at Sebring.
Yes, and the standing start will be incredibly important. Getting the start correct is always difficult in these cars, but the drivers up the front of the field will certainly have a lot of experience with that. How will the track temperature affect that, though? It's going to be easy to spin up the tyres. The more you spin up the tyres, the more heat gets into them. Combine that with a hot track temp, you're going to be slipping and sliding around here on the first lap. Well, 33 cars now lining up here. The start-finish line of Sebring International Raceway. A little bit of pit limiter action, it looks like, from Josh Anderson. Got to be careful of that. Is this going to cause some drama? No. Flicks it off just in time as the start comes upon us, and that's a lightning start from Zach Rattray White. He's going to have to go to the outside of turn 1. Defensive then from Anderson and Myers. And oh dear, Robbie Gibbs has found the wall. That's going to be difficult into turn 1 for everyone behind him. They won't quite be able to see what's going on. Exit of turn 1 is also a big choke point here at Sebring, but it looks clean at the front of the field. And the drivers, oh no, that's Corey Preston sideways on the apex of turn 3. Just avoids getting cleaned up by everyone else. But man, if Corey Preston didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. That's such a shame for him. He'll resume running at the back as the Orbit Drop Bear Mustang. I think that's Brownlee getting the grass out of Big Bend. I don't think there's damage to the car, but nonetheless, he's having a lot of trouble keeping that rear end under him.
just a little wild on the race start. So many drivers moving one side of the track to the other on that run to turn one. You saw Zach Rattray White trying to move ahead of Brady Myers and Josh Anderson. You saw Gibbs get tagged, and he made a bit of contact with the wall, but appears to have kept going in. Oh, he's so sideways right there. But Brady Myers leads this one. What a great launch he got.
Yeah, good stuff from Myers. Anderson didn't quite hook up the start. Rattray White almost had a go at second place, but he's had to settle for third for now. Jordan Ross making a nice improvement, moving into fourth place, and James Scott being put down to fifth, single file at the front of the field. And now Anderson will have a bit of assistance here from Myers. We'll pick up the slipstream coming out of Le Mans, as it looks like Brian Borg is the next driver to have an issue further up the back. He started in 25th, but it seems like Tower Turn didn't quite go his way. I think I interpret a little bit of damage to the front end there, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what happened to him. It was indeed at Tower Turn. I've just gone and checked it, and it was certainly could have ended very badly.
It was contact on the way into the braking zone, and then he speared across the grass, and everyone was lucky to see him and avoid him, so he didn't rejoin across the apex and take out a couple of cars. This is tight through Sunset Bend for the first time, and it's
no! Oh dear, pile up out of the final corner. 3 of the cars get rolling again, but my lord, Corey McFarlane and Sam Blacklock, with it seems Tyson Broad involved in that as well. That was tough coming out of the last corner here. Oh, and McFarlane's having trouble holding on to it here. Got to be careful, everyone around him. Broad is going to stop by the side of the track here. And it looks like we might have our first call to race control for a tow. Whether or not this turns into a safety car remains to be seen. The window is going to open pretty soon. James Scott there trying to get up the inside of Jordan Ross at the hairpin, and they go 3 wide with Zach Rattray White. That was insane. How that didn't end in a crash, I have no idea.
Safety car gets called. We had cars in the pit lane, so there wasn't a clear bit of track behind the stopped car. I think this is the correct decision. If the whole field was going and there was one stopped car, you'd look at the big gap on the track and say maybe they can pull that behind the wall. But in this case, it hasn't happened, and lap 2 brings us a safety car. It all begins with that gigantic crash in Sunset Bend. Tracking out, getting to power onto the front straight. 3 cars come together, and someone got turned hard into the wall, and multiple cars got damaged.
Yeah, that was a massive incident, and Broad clearly got the worst of it. It was all of that fighting that we saw, with Dylan O'Shea leading that battle. I mean, we were just seeing that on the way out of the final corner before we swapped to that wider angle. It just looks to me like Blacklock and McFarlane maybe had a slight miscommunication there. McFarlane was trying to track out to the exit of the final corner. Blacklock, meanwhile, suffering a little bit of oversteer, and they just came together. Poor Tyson Broad could do very little to avoid that.
So big split for who's pitting, who's staying out. A few big decisions. Leonard, Zach Rattray White, Brady Myers, the race leader, stays out. But Josh Anderson pits, Jordan Ross pits, Brett Loxton stays out and is going to leap up to 4th. Now, are we thinking that with that, what are we thinking as far as fuel range with that 90% tank with stops this early?
Yeah, about 24 laps or so is what we're hearing from Dan in the background. So it looks like 24 to 25 laps, depending on your fuel usage.
So this is no worries then to make this your 2-stop race, but what it does do is gives you a pretty narrow pit window between their 4 laps, sort of 20 to 25 for the drivers that are stopping now. Somewhere in the middle, you're going to see all of these drivers who stopped now need to make it to that point to be able to make their second stop and then have a pretty long run from that point to get home, while it's just 7 drivers that have stayed out. A few of them up from deep in the field are going to get themselves some nice little track positions. So Brett Loxton, Matt Morris, Oshan Colangelo and Jordan Siberus. But Josh Anderson has a 7-second stop. Has he brimmed the tank but not taken tyres in the 36?
Yeah, I think that might be what he's gone for here, which is an interesting decision. I think with the track being as hot as it is, you'd take tyres at every opportunity you could. Jordan Ross and Jake Maloney also have pit stop times under 10 seconds, so they might have also avoided taking tyres too. Looks like O'Shea did the same thing, but pretty much everyone else has 10 seconds or more on their pit time, apart from Ryan Mueller and Mark Poynton. So we've got fresh tyres for a lot of the cars in this field that have taken to the pit lane.
So really, you're looking at 3 different buckets of strategy out there. Those that haven't stopped your top 7, a couple of cars that have gone fuel only, and quite a few cars that have topped off their tank and put a new set of tyres on that should give them decent performance off this race start as well. Your sort of action zone when we do restart racing is going to be between sort of 6th and 10th, because you've got Colangelo from 33rd on the grid, Sybaris from 29th on the grid, that are going to be just ahead of Josh Anderson, the pole sitter, just ahead of Jordan Ross, who I reckon's gone for new tyres. Blake Warboys has definitely gone for new tyres, and James Scott. So there'll be some very quick drivers with very quick cars starting just in the lower reaches of the top 10.
Well, we're going to review the start here. I was very concerned about Anderson there. Clearly had the pit limiter on when the revs were rising, but he turned it off just in time. We're going to get a view of what happened to Robbie Gibbs here. So, yeah, trying to find some space in the run down to turn 1. But, he goes to the driver's left and then turns across Sam Blacklock there. So that's the reason why he got sent into the wall. No surprise to see that Gibbs pulled into the pits, the safety car period, and has not come out thus far. Plenty of damage for him there. Preston spinning up ahead, Gibbs having to take to the grass. And all he could do was just circulate. Oh man, we completely missed that incident there through turn 5 as well. But this is what brought out the safety car. Bilson here at the back of this train, you see that McFarlane and Blacklock come together ahead of them. Broad gets involved, and I think Bilson reacted to that. But he lost the rear end and spun on his own. I guess you could class that as technically a separate incident to this. Jeez, that's quite difficult. We'll see what the chopper view potentially provides here. So, yeah, you'll see that McFarlane accelerates out of the turn here and starts tracking towards the outside.
Blacklock gets oversteer
for him, and yeah, Blacklock does get oversteer. So it looks like the two of them just came together in that sort of sequence. Like neither of the drivers was, fully the instigator of that. They just both lost it at the same time and just blended into each other.
Yeah, Blacklock's coming from behind around the outside, has a fair bit of overlap all the way through, but incredibly bumpiest part of the racetrack, hottest part of the racetrack, and so much pressure racing wheel to wheel there. He's just, these cars race with a bit of sideways, a bit of angle in them. He's gotten just a little bit too much, got his nose to the car who's alongside, and of course that part of the racetrack, there's no runoff. It's just the concrete there, and big incident for a couple of cars, doing a lot of damage, bringing out this first BMW M2 CS Racing safety car of the race.
Yes, indeed. Well, coming in this lap, and
shout out safety car driver Dan Stevens.
Yes, big shout out indeed. Also runs a triple screen rig, much like what Rehan Leonage here has. Leonage, one of the drivers to avoid taking to the pits under this first safety car period, and his father Laz will be advising him on a lot of that, serving as his race engineer. It'll be interesting to see how it turns out for these top 7 drivers. I think, the likes of Morris, Colangelo, and Sybaris, not to knock them or anything, but I think that the likes of Anderson and Ross are going to get them pretty quickly off this restart. But Myers, Leonage, and Rattray White, our top 3, might be a bit of a different story.
So there's a couple of odd pit stops that have happened. Ewan Baker 15 seconds, Brian Borg 30. Some of them that make a lot of sense is Sam Blacklock in minute 40, Riley Bilson getting some repairs done, etc. as well.
It looks like I'm not quite sure what that pit stop is for Ewan Baker. Whether or not he picked up some damage on lap 1 there and had to get it mildly repaired, or I mean, tires are going to take 10 seconds regardless, and bringing the tank is going to take even less time. So something else there for the number 34 as we prepare for the restart. Safety car is in pit lane, and Brady Myers will lead us away for the first restart of V8SCOPS at Sebring. On the power nice and early out of Sunset Bend, struggling a little with the rear end. Zach Rattray White sticks with him very nicely. Rehan Leonage dropping back just a tiny bit there, will fall under pressure from Brett Loxton potentially. A bit wide on the way in for Rattray White as he tries to challenge Myers for the lead. Some good racing going on further back in the field, though. This is Anderson leading the cars who have pitted, but of course Anderson potentially did not take tyres on that stop. This will be an interesting battle between himself and Jordan Ross, with Jake Maloney not far behind.
Yeah, so none of the drivers that stopped making any gains just yet on the top 6. Brady Myers spread that field out pretty well with where he put the power down. It begins to congest at the turn 7 hairpin here. Dylan O'Shea, you see, just squeaking ahead of Ryan O'Sullivan and Jordan Sibaris.
Oh no! He's around through Fangio, coming together. Ryan O'Sullivan and Dylan O'Shea. And looks like they'll come together again on the exit of turn 10 too. O'Sullivan has to blend back onto the racetrack as O'Shea desperately tries to keep Lockhart Brownlee behind him, but Brownlee will move through. Brownlee, of course, winning the 2019 class race in V8SCOPS supports on Saturday night. So he's already got quite a bit of experience racing at this track this year. Chastaneuf, meanwhile, making moves himself, putting Jordan Sibaris behind him. His next target being William Sapstead. Plenty of drama here on the restart.
Yeah, so your top 6 remain in the top 6. It's Sibaris, who's dropped a couple of positions as they've restarted. He's been caught by a group of drivers, so Josh Anderson and Jordan Ross and others going through. You see Chastaneuf just here, haven't gone ahead of Sibaris. Ryan Mueller will probably be the next, along with Lockhart Brownlee, to try to do this. New fastest lap of the race from Brady Myers. We'll see if anyone else takes that away from him off of this restart, because those are the old tyres for Myers, but the clean air is doing him a world of good.
Yeah, definitely is. He's gotten this race off to a great start. Corey Preston on the recovery there, made his way past Mark Point and in some interesting fashions at the final turn. Rattray White is starting to round up Brady Myers here. Now, I don't expect fuel saving is going to be a big part of this race strategy. There is an opportunity to do that here. It can potentially shorten your final pit stop there if you use a bit less fuel here through the middle stint. But do they want to extend this first stint as long as they can here? I would expect that, you know, if you don't come into the pits under safety car at the start of the race, you're basically locking yourself into going as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, you've got everyone else who's got new tyres and a bit more fuel, but in traffic, what you're looking for is to stay out of traffic. For Myers and Rattray White, that's sort of looking like it could work out for them at the moment. Leonage as well, another quick driver in that top 3, trying to break away. I note that Anderson, Ross, Warboys, James Scott haven't made as much progress as they would like, still behind the Camaro of Ocean Colangelo for the moment.
Seems like Anderson very much involved with Colangelo at the moment. Jordan Ross finding it difficult to get past her on the way out of the Le Mans curve. Yeah, it just seems like Blake Warboys and James Scott are more interested in battling with each other at the moment. Warboys trying to angle for a potential inside line through that final corner there as the door is open on the inside of Colangelo there. Ross will find his way through on the exit of the corner.
If you've got a slight pace deficit, you lose one spot, you lose two, you lose three, as we've just seen. Another big crash in Sunset Bend. Corey Preston's in the wall.
Oh no, and it looks like Sam Blacklock again involved in an incident at the exit of the final corner there. He turned Preston around. Preston was on his inside, and as he got on the power, he straightened out. Yet again, Blacklock turning in, and well, he was trying to angle for the inside of the corner, and they just came together. So Preston will fortunately try his best to get it rolling again, but oh no, the safety car's been called again. Preston has actually lost his front right wheel. Second safety car of the race. We're not even 10 laps in.
Yeah, you see it sitting down there, and the left rear was smoking, and he couldn't get it going, so we go for a second safety car. And that's interesting. No one's making it to the end from here, so you're not making your second compulsory pit stop right now. I think everyone who pitted the first one is staying out, but who stayed out the first one that wants to pit now? I reckon I would if I was Colangelo or Sybaris.
Yeah, I think if you're at the back of that train of cars that didn't pit for the first safety car, you take this opportunity now, minimize your pain, minimize your losses.
Look how hard these two are going. I reckon they're heading for pits.
Yeah, it looks like it. They're certainly. It's not as if they're hurrying to catch the safety car here. They just want to try and maintain those gaps at the front of the field so that they lose as little time as possible when they come into the lane. I wouldn't be surprised if all the drivers who didn't pit come in this time.
That's what we're about to see on the inside, on the exit of Sunset Bend. So Brady Myers, race leader, took that lead away from the pole sitter in towards turn one, and they're all heading in towards the lane. Myers, Rattray White, Leonage. Who's the first to stay out? No, everyone who didn't stop first safety car looks to be coming in second safety car.
Yeah, so Anderson will resume the lead of the race and be picked up by the safety car on the exit of turn one. Gives us a bit of an opportunity here. The car came out ahead of the safety car there. That's Corey McFarlane, actually. Was he behind the safety car on the way out of pits, or was he let go?
He just left the pit lane and was between Anderson and the safety car, so he got waved around.
Right, so that's a wave around done right away there for McFarlane, whose car is looking a little bit worse for wear regardless. He should be able to bring it back around for a stop and damage repair.
Don't look at that car while it's in pit lane, because it's got no headlights, but somehow when the limiter is engaged, they still flash.
Ghost lights.
Energy what is the sound of one hand clapping? It's, what is the sight of no headlights flashing? One wonders. Apparently for Corey McFarlane. Definitely know what the safety car lights flashing looks like, and it's the second time that we've seen them. But for everyone who stopped with the first safety car, I think this second safety car vindicates them a little bit, because now Anderson's back to the race lead, where he qualified but didn't lead into turn one. Then he took that stop with the first safety car. He cycles back to the front, and this just preserves his tyres a little more, preserves his fuel a little more to carry him to a wider pit window in the middle of this race.
So the battle between Rattray White and Myers has come out in favour of Zach. It looks like Myers had a worse run through pit lane than Rattray White, despite them both having the exact same pit stop time of 14.5 seconds. They've gotten fuel and they've gotten tyres. I think a good opportunity actually for these guys coming in under this safety car. It's allowed them, staying out under the first safety car. It allowed them to extend the first stint a little bit, burn off a little more fuel in the tank. Now they come in under the second safety car. They've been able to fill the tank back up and be able to go a little bit longer on this second stop. They might have a chance here to gain further positions when the final pit cycle comes around.
Rattray White's jumped Myers as well with the pit stop, so...
He has? Oh, yes, he has.
I'm pretty sure... Yeah. Myers led him into the pit lane,
yes,
but Rattray White has led Myers out of the pit lane. So of that fourth strategy bucket, Zach Rattray White leads that group in 18th, having just left pit lane. 14 seconds is brim the tank and put a new set of tyres on, as Myers will have, as Leonage will have.
Yes. So this is what happened between Corey Preston and Sam Blacklock in the final corner. You'll see that Preston's on the inside, straightens it up, and Blacklock keeps turning. And unfortunately, Preston gets sent right into the tyre barrier. And, I mean, those tyres are pretty soft, but when you hit them at that speed, they will absolutely destroy you. Here's the chopper view. Watch Blacklock, the car on the left here, as Preston straightens up. I think Blacklock was anticipating that Preston would keep, you know, a little bit of a tighter line on the way out of the corner there.
Yeah, once is an accident, twice is carelessness, I feel.
Fair point. And we did see Blacklock effectively do something similar in the incident that brought out the first safety car.
Because he's got the visibility there as well, right? Like his nose is a meter behind. He can see where the other guy is. And yeah. But in both cases, Blacklock's got better visibility of what's going on, and contact still happens.
Well, something for race control to keep an eye out on.
I will say, this has gone really well for a couple of those drivers, though, that did stay out the first time, because suddenly Oshan Colangelo is on the same strategy as Brady Myers and Zach Rattray White, 2 cars behind them in the train.
Yeah, exactly. I think Colangelo can set this up for a great result. She's already up 12 spots from where she started. So, yeah, this is the first stepping stone to potentially a very good night for car 127. Safety car coming in this lap, and we'll get back to racing very shortly. There is still the question mark over the state of the tyres for our leader. We are thinking that Anderson did not take tyres in the first safety car pit cycle. And Jordan Ross, well, I'm seeing a 9.9 second stop to his name from the first safety car. Changing tyres is going to take 10 seconds flat, basically. So I'm not going to say for sure, but I believe that Jordan Ross didn't take tyres either. Blake Warboys will be the first car that for sure took tyres in that first cycle. So look out for him to potentially be keeping the pace up here and harassing these guys.
I reckon Ross did. If you get your car perfect and square in your pit box and you don't take a windshield tear off, I've seen tyre changes of 9.5 seconds.
All right, fair enough. So I'll sort of rearrange my statement to say Anderson will be under pressure from basically everybody behind him, aside from Jake Maloney, who it looks like also did not take tyres.
The good thing is these 80km/h safety car laps really let you cool off the tyres. The tyres on these cars are pretty sturdy, but very heat sensitive. So a long run on a hot track, they build up heat, they get slippery. You put new tyres on, the new tyres are cool and they're great for a couple of laps. But this does allow Anderson to get the heat out of them, and I'm sure he'll restart pretty strongly, as we're about to do.
Yeah, safety car's already pulled away and is entering pit lane as we speak. Last lap for the safety car was 10 minutes and 16 seconds. That's a fun little irrelevant stat for you all. Let's see how the restart is conducted here for Anderson. Acceleration point just past the bridge here, out of Sunset Bend. and the green flag flies once more to begin lap 10 of 42 here at Sebring. Staying with him nicely on the restart was Jordan Ross. Everyone just struggling to really find the best line through turn 1 there. Anderson and Ross were about a car width wide at the apex wall. Blake Warboys and James Scott cutting it quite a bit finer. Who gets the best exit out of turn 5? Nice late run into the corner for Anderson, and that's put him up for a great acceleration through the big bend down to the hairpin. Are there any moves to be made here up the top? It doesn't look like it. No dives from our top drivers, but seeing potential for a couple further back, like Brady Myers, who's just made his way past Mark Poynton for 17th. Rehan Leonage follows him through. So the charge is going to start now for the drivers who pitted under that second safety car. Rattray White now harassing the back of Ewan Baker.
Well, Myers also had a bit of a go at Zach Rattray White for the lead of that strategy. You see more side-by-side through the Cunningham corner here, which is tough for these cars because they move around. The track just keeps turning a little bit until you get into Tower Turn. And just managed to cover that off. But yeah, a few of those drivers getting off to a lightning start. Rattray White, Myers, Leonage all trying to make moves.
So Rattray White going forward on Baker at Gendebien, and he'll find the move completed at Le Mans. The door open to the inside, but Myers goes in too hot, and Baker gets spun off the circuit. He'll avoid getting into the barriers, but there'll be a few bumps and dings on that Synergy 34 Mustang, and he'll fall all the way to the back of the running order.
There's Leonage going down the inside of Mark Poynton. Brett Loxton will try to follow as well through Sunset Bend, which is where the multiple converging lines across the incredibly bumpy hairpin have caused significant drama at most and multiple points in the race, and maybe nearly do again.
That is mighty close to the tyre bundle for quite a few cars. Oh, looked to me like that was Loxton, I think, who's trying his best to find his way past Poynton here. Gets up the inside into turn 4 there. Actually, turn 3, sorry. Oh, big slide from Loxton. Just recovers it there in the background as Brady Myers and Rehan Leonage say, run away. Now Ocean Colangelo, who's also on fresher tyres than everyone around her, sees a chance here, but got to keep an eye out for the other cars behind who also want a piece of this action. Colangelo having to check up at the apex, and this is going to be a tough one for the 093 of Jordan Siberus. He almost stood a chance of being a part of that battle, but he's been compromised in the hairpin. He's going to allow O'Shea and Blacklock by, and it looks like Borg's going to get him too.
Yeah, this is a tough sequence here because you can go around the outside of Cunningham. Track goes left and you try to muscle your way through, but then Tower Bend, that banking, that camber on the inside is where all of the grip is. Sort of like Floridian Griffin's Bend turn 2, not quite as dramatic. Also, planes landing at Sebring are safer.
Yes, indeed. Sebring still an active airport outside the area of the actual racetrack. This is still looking feisty for Brett Loxton. Couldn't succeed in getting past Poynton. Now Matt Morris has found his way past him too. These guys battling for the last couple positions in the top 20. Ocean Colangelo has not elevated herself forward like she would have hoped with those fresher tyres. Everyone's just looking for the same bit of racetrack here early on in the race. Seeing news from race control, Ryan Mueller has been given a drive-through penalty for contact with Dylan O'Shea on lap 7. That was an incident that we missed, an incident at turn 1 that involved the two of those.
And a 10-second penalty for Ryan O'Sullivan, a 10-second penalty for Blake Warboys. So that's race control beginning to work through, I think, some of the lap 1, lap 2 stuff, although I think that says lap 5 and lap 6 in those cases.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so those were the incidents that happened just before the second safety car came out. The fighting in the midfield continues, as does the fighting up the front. Myers continuing his run up the field here. That's Kurt Stenberg in the TTR Camaro there that is fighting with William Sapstead and Tom Freer. Tyres that are just reaching the end of their prime phase for all of these drivers who pitted under the first safety car. Oh dear! Oh dear, okay. Looks like James Chastaneuf and Lockhart Brownlee at the exit of Tower. And, oh, that does not look healthy there for Lockie.
Front left, no good. Steering, no good. Bumper gone. Engine still in there, but I think not going to steer well. And I think he's given up on it.
Is this going to be yet another safety car? It's going to be critical to make those moves while you can, with the potential for that. Rattray White up into 12th. It's been a super charge. In the background, oh, yeah, looks like O'Shea in the wall. He's able to get it rolling. Lockhart Brownlee has requested a tow from race control as our leaders cross the line here. Anderson been able to hold off Ross. James Scott and Blake Warboys still on the outside looking in for this lead battle. Now, my question is, will Brownlee be given that tow without a safety car being called? I've just had that question answered. Safety car out for the third time here, before we've even got to the 14th lap.
So what do you do now? Do you pit with the third safety car? If you pitted with the first safety car, we're still before the critical lap number, to my understanding as well. So if you, Josh Anderson, you go, do you know what, some nice set of tyres would be good, you're going to turn yourself into a 3-stop strategy. So I guess you just got to stay out till that critical lap number comes, and everyone on the same strategy as him, like Jordan Ross, James Scott, Blake Warboys, Madison Down, Jake Maloney there, are going to be similar, and even Sebastian Vandel, Freer, Sapstead and Stenberg completing the top 10.
Yeah, this is going to be a big question for the drivers up the front of the field here. I can understand that some of the drivers would be frustrated here, because 3 safety cars in such a short time span. This race is going to run quite long, it seems. Maximum time of 2 hours and 10 minutes. If this pattern keeps going, we might end up going time certain. No further action on the incident between Brian Borg and Liam Kerr. As far as the incident between Chastaneuf and Brownlee goes, it looks like Lockhart basically caused the incident on his own. Chastaneuf did go for a dive at Tower Turn, and Brownlee did give him the space, but I think Lockie was just caught on the marbles and got into a huge slide. Then Chastaneuf bumped him, and around he went.
So you've got a couple of pit callers. Anderson stays out, Chastaneuf stays out, but Jordan Ross, James Scott, Madison Down, some really quick guys there. Kurt Stenberg, Zach Rattray White going for a second stop. This is all jumbled. The third safety car throwing some big questions on the strategy. Big overshoot from James Scott there. Misses. Oh, a second time he misses his pit stall. 2 goes at reverse gear to get into the pit stall, and he's going to get jumped by a whole heap of cars here, you'd imagine.
Yeah, that's disastrous for James Scott. Away goes Jordan Ross, and he's going to lead the charge out of pit lane. Madison Down will follow him out there, as Jordan Siberus, who did not pit under this safety car period, will find his way into 10th. So, how much did that cost James Scott? Well, he's come out in 19th place. He was up there, just behind Jordan Ross, and now they're separated by some 8 cars or so. So, yeah, that's far from ideal. What was the pit lane time there for Scott? It was 48 seconds. Compare that to only 42 seconds for just about everybody else. Zach Rattray White, meanwhile, very quick stop. 36 seconds through the lane, only 12.8 seconds stopped in the box. So putting himself in a good position once again.
Yeah, but did he get trumped by Jordan Ross? Jordan Ross was already ahead of him. Okay, so of everyone, of everyone who's just stopped under this safety car, it's Jordan Ross, Madison Down, Zach Rattray White, but they're 11th, 12th, and 13th with cars in front of them that hadn't stopped.
Hearing that Sam Blacklock might have been involved in another incident there just before the safety car was called. Apparently, there's something to do with Brian Borg. I'm not entirely sure. We will have to keep an eye out for that. But Blacklock has been at the centre of a few of the big incidents in this race, but not this one that brought out this safety car. It was a simple acceleration mistake from Lockhart Brownlee. Marbles on the outside of Tower, no grip out there. And I would say that Chastaneuf is blameless in that particular incident. He could he had no input in the outcome of that incident.
So Sybaris stayed out. Jordan Ross stopped with that safety car. We're going to take a look at this, and they're actually nearly identical on the pit exit blend, and Ross is going to move up another spot. That's Brownlee.
Yeah. So as you saw, Brownlee was on the outside. He was giving room to Chastaneuf, who made the move, but as soon as he got on the power, the rear end just let go, and Brownlee basically bounced off Chastaneuf. Meanwhile, this is what happened to Dylan O'Shea up the inside of Scott Gamble, and minor contact on the exit ballooned into a front end run into the tyre barrier. Still searching for the particular incident with Blacklock and Borg here, but looks like a bit of a checkup here under safety car. I did see okay, it looks like maybe an attempted redress. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, so some confusion over Sam Blacklock and Brian Borg. But we'll put that behind us here as we have Stenberg, Blacklock, and Baker in the pit lane. Sebastian Varndell, it looks like, has had a technical issue and dropped from the server. So we unfortunately lose the 458, who was on the verge there of the top 10 in qualifying. Race control deciding no further action for the contact between Rattray White and Ross back on lap 2. They're still working their way through these early lap incidents. And I mean, there'll obviously be some who say, oh, why don't race control work their way through it quicker? But there's been so many incidents in this race so far, and I would argue that's more on the drivers than race control.
Yeah, incredibly staccato beginning. That very early safety car, they were kind of got going. Had a safety car, kind of got going. Had this this safety car, and we're still before the halfway point of the race, before the point where we believe anyone could fuel and get to the end. Although there might be one or two drivers thinking about it. So this is lap 5 and turn 9, and that's Dylan O'Shea in red and white.
Oh, and that's Ryan O'Sullivan turning him around there. We saw that happen live, actually.
Then looked at Cunningham. I saw this happen. And O'Shea just sends him off there.
Yeah, so Ryan O'Sullivan's been given a 10-second penalty for that contact there, as you see. So, and one more incident ticked off the very long, ever-growing list that race control has. Josh Anderson James Chastaneuf, Liam Kerr, your top three for the moment. And, well, Chastaneuf and Kerr are some of the most out-of-position cars in the field at the moment. This third safety car seeing those extra pit stops from Ross, from Madison Down, Rattray White, Warboys, Maloney, everyone down to Riley Bilson. Kurt Stenberg, Sam Blacklock, and Ewan Baker pitting on this lap as well. As Warboys will receive some bad news. 10-second penalty for him for contact with Jake Maloney back on lap 6 at turn 7. Now that is at the hairpin, I believe.
Yep, because the hotel is called 7 at Sebring, and so is the restaurant.
Or actually, Warboys and Maloney did make contact at turn 10. I believe that is turn 10. So, yeah, maybe a mislabeling of the corners there, or maybe race controllers counting them a bit differently than we are. Who knows at this point? But, yeah, regardless, probably a justified penalty there. Warboys going for the move, tapped him and made contact to get the position.
I think some waiver rounds were getting issued. Safety car driver Dan Stevens has been pretty busy. He's had 2 pit stops and completed 6 laps of the race.
At this point, it looks like the safety car has more mileage than Tyson Broad and Robbie Gibbs, unfortunately.
That's true.
Ryan Mueller also getting a penalty, which he has served.
Sapstead, Stenberg, Blacklock and Baker pitting right now. Might be able to make it to the end from right now. This is that.
Interesting. I think if I was in Ryan Mueller's position, I mean, what could you do differently there? Yes, he went for the move on the inside, and you could argue he could have checked up a little bit more, but I don't think you could anticipate O'Shea turning in front of him like that. But at the same time, he was in deep, and O'Shea probably didn't expect him to stick his nose in that far.
So if we restart at the end of this lap, it'll be 26 laps to go. And I think there are some drivers that have satisfied their compulsory pit stops and are just gonna squeak to the critical lap number. So that's Sapstead, Stenberg, Ewan Baker, Sam Blacklock. Sebastian Vondel's back in the race, but he's a lap down, unfortunately. And then Ryan Mueller and Corey McFarlane 2 laps down. So it's just those drivers, Stenberg, Baker, etc., that could try to run really long from here if they can get a set of tyres to hold up.
Yeah, but I'm increasingly doubting that you can make the tyres hold up around here. The track temperature has decreased by a few degrees, down to 50 Celsius, but that is still blazing. That's still more than the tyres can handle.
It's gone from the pizza setting on your oven to the cake setting on your oven. And if we get a bit more cloud cover, it might come down to the sort of pastry setting.
Yes. Not quite to the brisket setting,
meringue,
unfortunately. Oh yeah, meringue. Yeah, that's an option. Make a cheeky pav.
Oh, you love it. You love it. I baked a cake for my mum's birthday earlier today.
Oh, happy birthday, David's mum.
It's good. Good, delicious, delicious chocolate cake, and we're about to get racing again. Third safety car will bring us our third safety car restart. Joshua Anderson up front on the tyres that he started the race on. Some drivers deep in the field. Are they on the tyres that they will finish the race on?
If you can make the tyres last 26 laps around Sebring with track temperatures like this, you are a driving god, and a temple should be built in your honour. I don't think anyone's going to try that, and if they do, they're going to be finishing way down the field, and they'll be struggling hard. We'll have to wait and see, though. About to get this race back under green flag conditions again. Josh Anderson, still with only a single pit stop to his name, and still no fresh tyres on the TTR number 36. Chastaneuf and Kerr also pitted under that first safety car like Anderson, but they have got fresh tyres on. They've got fresher tyres on, I should say. Only by 2 laps. But we've seen that be the difference maker in the past. Anderson leaving it very late here to get off to the start. And we're across the line and racing again to begin lap 17. Some pressure being placed by Rehan Lienage on Liam Kerr. Lienage, the highest placed of the drivers who pitted under the second safety car.
Zach Rattray-White just sent it on 3 drivers down the inside of turn 1. Now he's coming across to try to cover over. He's not going to let Jordan Ross get away with too much of an advantage, so making a few spots there. And so Ross, Rattray-White down, the drivers that just pitted with that safety car. Baker around.
Oh no, yep, another problem for Ewan Baker. It looks to be at turn 5. Warboys, meanwhile, struggling to slow it down to the hairpin. The cars clatter over the bumps there on the way into the corner, and seems like the rear end's still dancing around a little bit for Warboys on the exit of the corner too. See what he can do to find his way past Jake Maloney here. And James Scott, after the overshooting of the pit box under the safety car, back down in P17. Got a lot of work to do here.
Sure does. Just behind Siberus, who didn't stop, and just ahead of O'Shea in this group. Oh, that's surely a cut from Siberus, and you better believe that's a slowdown.
Oh boy. Yep. Furled black flag for Jordan Siberus. He'll have to pull over on the exit of the corner here to serve that. Or maybe he'll try and serve it a bit more sneakily. He does pull out a line here and lifts off and lets James Scott go. Things going from bad to worse for Ewan Baker and Kurt Stenberg. In fact, I think everyone who pitted under that last safety car might get a penalty here because they exited a closed pit lane under that safety car. We saw drivers in split 2 get pinged for this. Baker, Stenberg and Blacklock all being given drive-through penalties for violating the safety car procedure.
I just had to look back at those messages that say pit exit closed, and there were plenty of them. So yeah, that's deeply, deeply costly for them. A lot of them taking their drive-throughs right now. But it means that strategy, they thought, gee, it could be all right. Well, it's not, because of the mistake that they've made exiting closed pits. Look at this advantage that Joshua Anderson has got. Lienage looking fighting.
Anderson's gotten off to a great start, hasn't he? Running 9/10 of a second faster than Chastaneuf, and there's a lot of potential here for the drivers on fresher tyres to be mired back there. Anderson has the luxury of the track all to himself, so he can get that gap. Up the inside goes Jordan Ross, past both Scott Gamble and Zach Rattray-White. 3 wide into turn 10 doesn't always work out, but on the rare occasion it does. It provides a brilliant picture.
Yeah, Rattray-White's trying to follow Jordan Ross through the traffic, so Ross restarted in 10th, I think. It's got ahead of Scott Gamble now. Rattray-White's been trying to follow him through as well. Next up is Colangelo as they try to make their way forward. But Rattray-White, I think, knows that Ross is on the same strategy as him. So if that's the winning strategy, he can't let Jordan Ross get too far away, too far up the road. And that's why he's moving around here, trying to go around the outside of guys, trying to go down the inside to make passes, and just trying to follow in the footsteps of wherever Jordan Ross goes.
Rattray-White will have to find his way past Gamble here at Sunset Bend if he wants to get the pace up, but there's going to be no opportunity on the way in. Got some pressure from behind. Madison down, and Jake Maloney with them. Brady Myers as well. All of these drivers trying to find their way up this field as we begin the 19th lap of this race. Still got a super long way to go. We're not even at the halfway mark yet. Got to wait another 12 kilometers for that. Hearing some news as well from a couple of our administrators who are watching the action as Rattray White attempts at the inside there of Gamble. Apparently, Madison is clutching it hard in the braking zones. He's keeping those revs down. He's saving fuel. Actually, it seems like all of the TTR cars are doing that, considering what I just heard from them coming into the hairpin.
Very interesting, because that doesn't look like the body language of Zach Rattray White, who's all over the bumper, looking for a way past towards Cunningham. I think he'll get down the inside. Ross is still going to be behind Colangelo, so if Rattray White moves down the inside here, and he does, he can keep hunting Jordan Ross, who has a couple more that he's trying to hunt.
Right on the back of Colangelo there is Jordan Ross, and no opportunity thus far. Coming out of Tower. We still have a run of 7 drivers, or actually 6 drivers, who are very much out of position here. Chastaneuf, of course, still running second. Liam Kerr in third. Then we have Matt Morris, Brett Loxton, Mark Poynton, and Ocean Colangelo. Leonage is one of the drivers who's not necessarily out of position, though he decided not to pit under that last safety car. Still only has 1 pit stop to his name. He's moved up to third now, passing Matt Morris on the way into the final corner. As we continue to follow along with Zach Rattray White for the moment, Matt Morris now under pressure from Liam Kerr. Defensive for the Neuro Power 966, but could there be a cutback from Kerr on the way out of turn 1? There certainly is. Sets him up for the inside move into turn 3. Got to be careful on the brakes, not to lock up on the way in here. Easy to unload the car, parking it on the apex there, but there's still a tiny bit of overlap for Matt Morris. And this loses them a ton of time. Leonage streaking away as he chases down Chasty ahead, and Brett Loxton might find a way through this battle too.
Yeah, so through Big Bend into the biggest stop on the racetrack, which is the turn 7 hairpin here. It seems to have sorted itself out in the advantage of Liam Kerr, who was great with that switch back into turn 1. Loxton ranges up on the back of them, and the trains from 7th from Mark Poynton to Colangelo to Jordan Ross to Zach Rattray White, Scott Gamble, and Madison down. Colangelo's got Jordan Ross trying to get past her, but trying to also make it way past Mark Poynton. She seems to have just a tiny bit more speed than. Definitely has fresher tyres than, that's for sure.
Yeah, by about 5 laps or so. So Poynton, yeah, he's had 17 laps on those tyres now, same number as our top 2 plus Liam Kerr. So the tyres are certainly not in their prime phase at the moment. Myers has gotten a 15-second time penalty there. Race control just announcing that. The contact that we saw with Ewan Baker, who turned around at this very corner we see coming up here. That is massive for Brady Myers. And meanwhile, live, Mark Poynton with a bit of a squirrely exit out of Le Mans. Colangelo will say thank you very much and move past on the way into the final corner. And Jordan Ross follows her through. So does Zach Rattray White. Will Scott Gamble get his nose in here too?
Yeah, so once you sort of get opened up, then a few drivers will try to step through that gap. And Ross, Rattray White followed Colangelo through. Now, Rattray White almost gets driven into by Poynton into turn 1. Bit of a check-up there. We're right on board with Scott Gamble just outside of the top 10, as he's now thinking, if everyone else is getting past Poynton, surely it's my turn.
Oh, bump. Yeah, Poynton's
there's a few of them around
really
here, mate.
There are. Poynton's really struggling with the rear end now, isn't he? Every time he comes off the corner, you can just notice the car squirming, and it looks like Gamble might be having the same issue there off turn 5, largely due to the curb. But I'm amazed that Poynton was able to hold on to it out of turn 1. Did you see how much the car was moving around there?
Yeah, sun's back out, track temp's up 54 Celsius, and it just keeps climbing every time I look. So the tyres in this racing condition are starting to heat soak as they slide them around. They begin to move more, they pick up more heat. The racetrack's picking up more heat, so it's getting really slidey for everyone who's starting to wear their tyres and quickly, and also just overheat them, grease them up and slide them around.
Long, greasy train of cars finding their way around the back part of the racetrack here as Loxton becomes the next car to find his way past Kerr. And if anything, he'll try and find his way past Morris as well. What on earth has happened there at the front of this train? Side by side through some of the most difficult corners at the track to run side by side through. Loxton will lose the position back from Morris, but he'll secure it on Liam Kerr.
And then that next group of drivers get closer as this battle all unfolds. Morris gets a couple of those spots back. Liam Kerr drops behind Brett Loxton. Joshua Anderson, James Chasanoff, Rehan Leonard serenely sailing away in the top three, but will owe us a longer final pit stop than almost every other car you see on screen right here. Rattray White with a slowdown, dropping bulk positions.
Oh, no. He'll fall behind Gamble, behind Madison Down, and the other TTR cars of Maloney and Myers will get him too here. It looks like Myers is going to be gearing up to tour through pit lane very shortly. Obviously, he's still got that penalty hanging over his head. He will need to serve it at some point, but it looks like he's a bit more worried about Rattray White for the time being. Gets up the inside of him there in turn one, and sailing in behind is Blake Warboys, who is struggling to find any bit of space here to make an impression on this fight. Talk about James Scott and Ryan O'Sullivan as well. They're just sitting back here. It's basically like freeway traffic. There's no way you can find a gap here when they're all packed this tightly.
Unless you use one of those super secret on-ramps to the Tonkin Highway that I hear you're a big fan of. But yeah, you gotta muscle your way in the way that it runs like that, because if you don't get to merge in and you're offline, 3, 4 drivers, 5 drivers all go and pass you. So definitely now we're past the critical lap number. You stop now, you are looking to be getting to the end on your fuel. Tyres remains the big question on a high tyre wear track that is super hot and greasy.
Up the inside goes Dylan O'Shea on Ryan O'Sullivan. Nice move at turn 10. Of course, the both of them came together before, and O'Sullivan got a penalty for that. And this time, no contact between the two. O'Shea still struggling with that damage to the front right from one of his earlier incidents. He's been involved in a couple, unfortunately. It's been far from a clean race for many drivers out here today.
Ryan Mueller 5 times through the pit lane. Sam Blacklock 6 times through the pit lane. Your race leader Josh Anderson 1 time through the pit lane is the kind of race we've been having, with penalties, 3 safety cars, some incidents and coming togethers. So for Josh Anderson, his tyres are now 19 laps old, or older, with just 20 laps to go. So those tyres have gone further now than they need to be able to get to the end.
And he's still holding on to some great pace too. Like, I'm looking at the times here through the field. Anderson, fastest car on track so far. You know, the drivers who are on fresher tyres, they've got all of these slower cars ahead of them, and they've not been able to capitalize on those fresher tyres. Anderson practically has the track to himself right now, and he's able to maximize that pace. 207.2. The only driver who's been able to get close to him there is Rehan Leonard on a 207.3. And
think about
he's got about 5 seconds back.
Jordan Ross is 11 seconds behind the race lead, but with that second stop, he took 18 seconds of fuel. I assume he's going to need about 18 seconds less of service between now and the end than Josh Anderson. So it looks good for Ross if he stays within 18 seconds of Joshua Anderson. That's the David Haynes maths.
We'll see if the maths checks out once the teacher hands in your test paper. Matthew Morris, meanwhile, holding on to 4th here. Got Brett Loxton still pressuring him. Both of them have left Liam Kerr behind. And Ocean Colangelo still has Jordan Ross staring up the tailpipes with The super fast run into Gendibien and Le Mans yet to come. No opportunity for Ross to find his way past here, but every so often you see Liam Kerr right there. Bit too much curb through the corner there for Ross. You know, the curbs at that section of the racetrack, they are difficult because they rise up above the concrete and they have a sharp sort of back edge to them. You hit them the wrong way and the car can be sort of, I don't know, hit sideways by the curb.
1,000 racing lines through Sunset Bend. On board
And
with
none
Jordan
of
Ross.
them are correct.
No, even if you find a good one, you can't repeat it because the bumps are pure RNG. You'll be 0.2 of a millimeter off the line that you were the lap before and bounce a completely different way and be like, well, that line was no good, even if it was good a lap ago. Trust me. So, yeah. What was I going to be looking at there? Colangelo's still holding on, very positive. But Jordan Ross, there's two scenarios. Either he's making it to the end on fuel and Joshua Anderson isn't. Win for Jordan Ross.
Oh, God! Jeez! Is that McFarlane? Oh, dear. That was massive. Out of turn one. And it looks like heavy damage. Can he get it rolling is the question. Oh, the front right's gone on that car. Oh, dear. We're going to see another safety car out of this. Battling with the car of Sebastian Vandel. Just looks like, oh, he lost it a little coming out of turn one there. And then the lack of momentum meant Vandel made a tiny bit of contact with the rear end and that just sent him off. Yeah. McFarlane, one of the more embattled drivers here today. Question is, has he been able to get it rolling? He has, but only just. Hopefully that car can actually make it back to pit lane because not only is the engine smoking, oh, it's getting worse. There's more smoke coming out of the engine now for McFarlane, and he doesn't have that front right tyre working. Meanwhile, for second place, Ran Leonage rounding up James Chastaneuf and will be classed ahead as they come into the braking zone for Sunset Bend. Leonage back up to second.
Chasty stopped lap 2, Leonage stopped lap 7 with the second safety car. So Leonage then with a 7-second difference of fuel taken to Josh Anderson and is 6 seconds behind Anderson. So there's a couple of drivers that absolutely can challenge Anderson with pit stops still to unfold. Leonage on one strategy there, carrying a bit more fuel and slightly fresher tyres than Anderson, and then also Jordan Ross up in 8th, but not making as much progress. Again, we keep pointing out, not making as much progress as the numbers ought to suggest.
I'm keeping an eye on McFarlane here as he tries to make his way back to pit lane. These it doesn't look like these drivers will come up on him at all. As the battle continues between Rattray White, Madison Down, Jake Maloney. I mean, there's going to come a point where the tyres are going to go off for these drivers and they won't be able to take advantage anymore, which may just give an extra advantage to the likes of Leonage and Anderson. Yes, of course, as you point out, David, they will have less fuel to put in the car to make it to the end, but I get the feeling that we're approaching the point where those two strategies may cancel each other out.
It's frustrating for Zach Rattray White because he's trying to make back some of those positions, but he's surrounded by TTR guys that are massively fuel saving, like gigantically into turn 7, gigantically into Cunningham Bend, 100 meters each time and more. So, I mean, they're trying to go to the end, right?
I mean, we're kind of at the point where that's looking like a possibility. McFarlane has made it back to the pits successfully, by the way, in case anyone was worried about that. We will not have another safety car from that. Whether or not we're going to have another one in the future for a different incident remains to be seen. But yeah, look at that there from Madison Down. Massive drop in revs on the clutch in 6th gear on the way into Sunset Bend. Yeah, what is the deal with the TTR cars here.
Rattray White pits.
Oh, yeah, there we go. So this is going to be his final stop to the end. It's going to be another 18 laps for Rattray White from the end. He should easily be able to make that. Riley Bilson joining him in the pit lane. So first callers here for the final scheduled stop of the night.
And your understanding of the rules would have Madison down, Jake Maloney, Brady Myers as having completed 2 CPS, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because all you have to do is just stop in the box. It can be for any length of time. It doesn't matter if you don't get any service done or not. As long as you come to a stop in your pit box, you can go, and that's your compulsory pit stop requirements satisfied.
That guarantees that everyone in the top 7 needs to stop again, and everyone from Jordan Ross in 8th could make it all the way to the end. Whether they will, whether that's quick, we don't know. Ross is boxed in behind those 2 drivers battling in front of him. Kerr and Colangelo down the inside of Kerr finally makes that move that I think Colangelo had been shaping for. Now heading towards Tower, Jordan Ross wants 2 for 1.
Oh, he's not going to have space around the outside through that particular corner, but up the inside at Tower, he will get it done. And finally sees a...
Smart from Colangelo to just cut the losses there and go, all right, well, I'll drop in behind Jordan Ross and I'll bank these chips and walk out of the casino.
Yeah, exactly. And for Jordan Ross, he finally has something resembling a clear racetrack ahead of him, still bouncing off the curves there through the Jean de Bien Le Mans section. I'll clarify something. I was notified by Mr. Yeaman behind the scenes. You do have to go up on the jacks in the pit box to satisfy the CPS requirement, but you don't have to get service done. You'll just see the cars jump up on the jacks and then pop back down and roll away.
Team order swap there. Myers, Maloney and Scott.
Okay, so some service has to be taken, but it can be any amount. Thank you, Dan, for clarifying.
Windshield tear-offs are free.
Yes, actually they are. More pitters. Scott Gamble, Liam Kerr, Jordan Siberis in the lane. So this will be setting them up for their final stint of the night.
So the pace is starting to drop off for those guys, Brady Myers, Jake Maloney, James Scott. They just had a little bit of team orders, I think, where Myers went ahead of Maloney, and they're not catching Colangelo. They're doubling their efforts on the lift and coast and the clutch into all of the corners and such. So if they think they can get to the end, the question is, can Jordan Ross? I don't think he's been near as aggressive on that.
Well, some clear air for Rattray White. This will be at least of some benefit to him. No cars in front of him that he has to try and navigate. I'm sure we'll be seeing an absolute ripping lap time from Rattray White, potentially the net race leader here. We'll have to wait and see how it works out for Anderson, for Leonage. But James Chastaneuf, who in the midst of all of this is still holding on to 3rd place, only 7 seconds behind current race leader Josh Anderson. Oh dear! You want to talk about split 2 podium drivers? Brett Loxton with a huge slide there, just gets back onto the racetrack in front of Colangelo.
It's like he's come from the drag strip entrance onto the back straight or something there. But just behind Jordan Ross, ahead of Colangelo, cost himself a little bit of time with that one. Josh Anderson pits from the race lead.
Here we go then. So Anderson versus Rattray White is going to be something to watch here. Anderson has only pitted once here. He's been out there in the lead on those now very worn tyres. He'll come to a stop and be joined in the pits by Matt Morris and Brett Loxton. Makes sense to see Loxton in there. Those tyres had clearly had enough of the abuse they were being put through. Anderson getting fuel done here. Fill it all the way up here with 15 laps to go. And Rattray White just coming through the start-finish straight now. And it looks like he is going to get Anderson there.
206.2 is a really good lap that Zach Rattray White's just done, so those tyres giving him a whole lot of performance. He had the clean air, he knew he needed to push, and he will be ahead of Anderson. There's almost a chance he's working on a bit of an undercut on Jordan Ross and Brady Myers, for example, here as well, so this could be working out too decently for Zach Rattray White. Down moves ahead of Colangelo.
Yep. Madison,
so finally, the TTR guys are gonna make a move here. They might be done saving. They might be seeing those lap times from the guys that just pitted, and seeing also Josh Anderson make his stop and go, all right, now it's time to pick it up.
Yeah, pick up the pace, and potentially we can expect them to come into the pits this lap, maybe to set themselves up for the end. You know, when you're on a hot track like this and someone pulls an undercut on you, you want to try and minimize that undercut. Make it as small as possible, because the more time you're on warm tires and the other guys out there on freshies, then that's the more time you're going to ultimately lose. So up the pace, get into the lane, but Colangelo is the cork in the bottle, so to speak. Both Myers and Maloney struggling to get past him. You can say this past her. Sorry, you can say the same for James Scott and Blake Warboys too. Tom Freer moving ahead of O'Shea. Yes. It's like we're sharing a brain cell.
Yeah, it's my turn tomorrow.
Okay. Monday, though. I'm going to use that brain cell. Well, Chastaneuf, the next driver to come into the pit lane. And it looks like O'Shea moving in as well. Interesting to see that the Trans-Tasman cars didn't come in on that lap. I was fully expecting them to do that. Maybe they just want to clear Colangelo here and get a lap or two out there at maximum pace before they do so.
Colangelo held on for a long time, but then Jake Maloney, James Scott went through. Blake Warboys muscled in as well, and once again Colangelo defending until there's a point that there's significant overlap, and then just dropping in behind and maybe thinking, I started last on the grid, I'm running with these guys inside of the top 10, let's I think that's just such a sensible way to do it, is hold your position, fight, but don't fight too hard, because if you make it a boxing match against some of those drivers, you will end up significantly more bruised than them.
What to think about in that position, but you're right. Colangelo is playing this one
very well.
Yeah. One of the first times in Split 1, if not the first time. Seen her active in Split 2 from the start of the season here. Running solidly in the Max Boost 127. Should also point out that we were talking about team changes in the lead up to qualifying. Tom Freer is the other driver that has changed teams since round 3. He was with Vermilion, but now he's just a privateer. Looks like
now he's Tom Freest.
Very good, very good. Oh dear. Well, Colangelo, yep, finally Colangelo comes into the lane.
About to get the first flying lap from Joshua Anderson since his pit stop. He doesn't have as much clean air as Zach Rattray White does, but if he's going along quickly, massive crash for Scott Gamble.
Oh dear, oh dear, Gamble. It looks like on the Ullman Straight, and the front end's gone. On his return to Evolution Racing Team, Gamble's had plenty of adventures here in the first V8SCOPS round since coming back home, so to speak. He will tour straight into the pit lane. Colangelo's pit stop, 27.5 seconds. It's a bit longer than what we saw from Josh Anderson. And speaking of Anderson, 2:05.8 was his first flying lap there. Faster than Rattray White. This is actually quite the run that we're seeing from Anderson here. He's almost caught right up to Zach Rattray White.
He's passed Zach Rattray White this lap. No?
No, that's Stenny. That's Stenny, the TTR car ahead. Stenberg, of course, running his own race here. He's been in the pits 5 times in this race. The last, of course, being for a drive-through penalty for exiting the closed pit under safety car. Gamble, meanwhile, 30 seconds and counting in the pits. Now, this, speaking of Stenberg, we've been alerted to something here. Stenberg could be in a position to make it to the end here. He's already been out there for 14 laps. He's taken tires, taken fuel, whatever. We only have 12 laps remaining. The tires will obviously be hurting, but could he make it to the end from here as Leonage is the next driver to come into the pits?
Yeah, now I thought Leonage would need to take less fuel than Anderson, but Anderson's had a pretty ferocious undercut on those new tyres. Here's the advantage that new tyres can give you, tight, squeaky bum time through Sunset Bend. But if this is a quick stop from Leonage, who's already done with the service and rolling in pit lane, he's going to blend near this, perhaps ahead of it, perhaps behind, perhaps just behind. That's the effect of the tyre undercut.
Yeah. Rattray White gets ahead of Stenberg, but Stenny was helping Anderson out a little there. The gap is ever closer. This is the battle for the effective race lead you're seeing at the moment. They may only be just rounding out the top 10 on track right now, but we're still waiting on pit stops for everyone ahead of them. Oh, here he comes. Oh, potential move there for Anderson. It's blocked by Rattray White. Anderson positioning the car very well there, widening the run into the hairpin so he can get the best run out of it. And I get the feeling turn 10 might be the next spot we see something go on here. Rattray White is likely going to go defensive. Of course he would, but Anderson catching the grass and the curb. Tiny bit of overlap, but not enough. And oh, does Anderson find a gap on the exit? He does not. It's on now, and Leonage is looking at this and thinking, wow, I'm absolutely in this right now. Oh, Anderson up the inside at Tower forces Rattray White wide, and he has to get out of the power there to be sort of preemptive redress, and Leonage will be effectively leading the race here.
Yeah, Leonage, counting the lucky stars, goes longer, gets undercut, then gets those spots back, now has the fresher tyres, now track position on Zach Rattray White and Josh Anderson, who are throwing big punches at each other. Rattray White remains ahead after that, but I thought Anderson was a lot quicker. Very cunning, just not quite able to perfectly execute some of those crossovers that he was aiming for. Jordan Ross stops. So Ross has got to stop, and he was just ahead of some of those guys like Maloney, Myers, James Scott, that were asking, can they go to the end? Can Madison Down go to the end?
Anderson is still trying to find his way past Rattray White as we get a replay here of Scott Gamble and Dylan O'Shea. This is what happened to Gamble. Oh, it was contact with O'Shea. And Dylan has been given a penalty from race control for that one. It just looks like Gamble, I think, was trying to move over a bit there. Yeah, pretty clear cut. O'Shea.
I think the first is Gamble going into O'Shea, and the second is O'Shea going into Gamble.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
So where's Jordan Ross? He's behind, but only by about 4 seconds. He's just a backer shot here. This battle between Rattray White, Josh Anderson, this is a massive win for Rehan Leonage.
Yeah, Leonage has gotten ahead of Stenberg, up ahead of all of this as well, and he's absolutely flying right now. See
Ross
the
waited too long to stop. The guys on the old tyres were doing 208s. They were doing 205s on fresh tyres, these guys.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Kurt Stenberg getting pushed by Zach Rattray White into turn 10. Sorry, go on.
So I think for Jordan Ross, he's waited a little bit too late to make his stop, and he's been undercut by these drivers. He could have come in 2 laps earlier and probably been just ahead of this battle. Now he's right on the back of this battle. Zach Rattray White,
nearly falling off the circuit there. Blacklock, O'Sullivan and Ross up in the midst of all of this Scots as well. There's been some drama here between Rattray White and Stenberg. Stenny, of course, struggling on those aging tyres. And a teammate that was racing against Rattray White at the time. Things are starting to come to blows between the 47 and the 17.
I mean, Rattray White definitely had Stenberg parked up at the apex of Cunningham Corner and some earlier places, and bringing in a few of these other drivers that are massively tyre advantaged versus Kurt Stenberg.
Yeah, massive advantage indeed. Looks like there's been another coming together between James Scott and Brady Myers as well. Scott's fallen behind Myers and Warboys as a result. It happened down at turn 3. It's contact at one of the highest speed points on the circuit. And it looks like that might be Scott potentially out of the battle for the win. Warboys holding on to provisional third for now versus Myers. This is what happened between them. So James Scott taking to the outside there after Myers made a mistake out of turn 1, but then Myers tried to get back online in the braking zone, but James Scott was there.
Yeah, I think he's pushed him off, to be honest. Has he redressed that? He hasn't. He might be.
Yeah,
I don't think he is.
Maybe wait from race control to have some input on that.
Because I always say, if you move across to defend the inside, you shouldn't be able to then move back across to the racing line and close that avenue. You pick, which side of the racetrack you're going to cover, and you cover that side. You can't have both.
Yeah, I suppose the counterpoint to that is the nature of the circuit through that section, because you navigate that right-hand kink of turn 2. You've got to turn the wheel to the right to get through that, and maybe it would have been a matter of an instant of a second longer that the wheel was turned to the right there for Myers, and that just put him on a trajectory back into Scott. Regardless, I see your point. He probably should have given him a bit more space.
So Sapstead, we're on board with, stopped 17 laps ago. Everyone in front of him, now 18 laps ago. Everyone in front of him stopped 20 laps ago. Brian Borg behind him stopped 20 laps ago. Then you've got Leonage, Anderson, Jordan Ross, all of those guys. Jordan Ross has just made a spot. They're all behind him, having stopped more recently. But Sapstead, perhaps, if those TTR cars can't make it to the end in front of him, net race leader, but not with the pace that some of those guys behind might have.
This has turned into a race with many different permutations. I mean, obviously, it was a bit tedious early on with all of those safety cars that we got at the beginning, but they have turned this race into a very intriguing strategy battle. Brady Myers, meanwhile, just made the move on Blake Warboys while clutching it in the braking zone. There was no noise coming from the TTR car as it slipped by the WKMP Mustang. And now James Scott sees the opportunity to try and get these positions back, and driving like mad to make up this time that he lost thanks to the contact with Myers.
This is certainly going to be interesting. Do we see another stop from Down, Maloney, Myers, Scott, Warboys, Tom Freer? Surely we have to. Is Jordan Ross and Zach Rattray White getting into each other just a little bit?
Yeah, coming to blows, and Sam Blacklock is right with them as well.
Ross's tyres are right in the sweet spot as well. Lap 3 versus lap 9 for Rattray White. This is further up the road. Oh, Warboys is mega save.
Well, that's a slowdown penalty, I think, for Blake Warboys there. And he's still got it here. He's, that's a lot of time being lost. Finally cleared on the exit of Sunset Bend. But that's mega time loss for Mr. Warboys, who's been battling in that top 6 all race long. Tom Freer, the next car to make a stop, as up the inside goes Jordan Ross. Rattray White trying to fight back at him here, but successfully gamed for the Synergy 143. They will pass Freer in the pit lane. 10.5 seconds stop there for Tom. That's going to be fresh tyres on his car to the end. Any further positions to be made up, we'll have to wait and see. Oh, look at the momentum there for Kurt Stenberg on Brett Loxton. Could be a move for 14th, but no, Stenny's going to blend out of it. Looks like that was actually Loxton passing Stenny into turn 1.
Well, how good has this been for Rehan Leonage? Now, like 11 seconds clear of Zachary Trey White and out of here. Leonage's last lap very strong at a 2:16.7, catching Sapstead more than a second a lap with 8 laps to go. I think that's enough that at the pace that Sapstead is doing, Leonage is going to get him. Brian Borg will need to make another stop because Tom Freer, who has just stopped, is now out of the picture as well. Unless there's a massive tyre drop-off coming for Leonage, this is the rate that we're closing at.
Yeah, that's crazy. Over a second a lap, sometimes more.
But yeah, okay, that's consistency from Sapstead, and you're seeing Leonage's brand new tyres begin to heat up to go from 2.2 to 1.9 and 1.3. It's not Sapstead's pace picking up, it's Leonage's pace just beginning to plateau as the temperature sort of, now there's a word I'm looking for, sort of soaks into the tyre.
Yeah. Moderates, maybe. Another 2:08.1 there from Sapstead, so yeah, you want consistency. The 81 machine is where it's at, though you can see that he's starting to struggle through the high-speed corners. Those tyres are threatening to let go.
Yeah, but 1.2 seconds that Leonage takes out, so Sapstead's maintaining a plateau of pace, and Leonage is just beginning to work past the great of a new set of tyres and into just the good of a new set of tyres. These two were battling so hard earlier on. Matt Morris.
Yeah, we've got Riley Bilson and Mark Poynton up behind. And Poynton actually separated there by Sebastian Vandel, who of course is lap down. Got 3 cars a lap down at the moment. Vandel, Mueller and Dylan O'Shea. Good exit from turn 5 for Matt Morris, who's had one of the more adventurous races here. I will point out, I am keeping my eyes on our top 2 at the moment. Maloney and Down, they are still saving fuel. So obviously they picked up the pace to get by Colangelo. That was the critical point for them. They had to do that to try and keep themselves in this, as Chastanerf and Blacklock side by side on the Exeter Tower, battling for 13th. But I think once the TTR cars cleared the slower competitors in front of them, they've gotten right back on that fuel save strategy. I don't see any hint of them coming into the pits here, and there's 6 laps to go. Oh dear. Okay, so Blacklock, another driver who's not had a great night, blends back onto the racetrack right in front of Morris. He's going to lose the spot as well. Back up to Brady Myers and James Scott. Now, James is on the same strategy here as the TTR cars. Unclear how much fuel he is saving, but he'd have the opportunity here behind Myers. Oh, all right. Just as I say that, he goes for the move at the hairpin. Up into 3rd place. No. Little deep there for James Scott. And Myers turned in on him and just made the situation worse. And bring Blake Warboys back into the fight.
So if you locked up and you missed the apex and then contact happened, you'd have to redress that, right?
Interesting conundrum there, because Yeah, I mean, Myers did initiate the contact by turning in, but then you could also argue that that James Scott was just too deep into the corner to begin with, and so who was the aggressor in that situation?
They got to the exit of the track where Myers was going to be in the grass if he didn't turn in. But is Myers playing the role of back James Scott away from Madison Down and Jake Maloney to build a cushion for them?
Well, this is the thing, though. James Scott, yeah, he had a pit stop that was a couple of seconds longer than Maloney and Down, so he does have a bit more fuel to work with, but he still pitted on the same lap as them. So he might still have to save a bit of fuel himself, is what I'm implying with that.
I think on the lap that they both pitted, they would have both filled their cars to the same level. It's just one had pitted under first safety car, one had pitted under the second safety car. The offset had come from there, and the second pit stop had equalised them to the same amount of fuel to get home. Linage making another position and into the top 7. .207.2 is only 8/10 quicker than Sapstead this time, so it's gone from 2.2, 1.5, 1.2, 1 second, now only 0.8 of a second quicker than Sapstead. This is down the race leader.
Yeah. And this time he doesn't fuel save into the hairpin. Interesting.
I mean, knowing how good fresh tyres are, you simply wouldn't be doing this and stopping with 2 laps to go if you didn't think you could do it. You would have stopped 8 laps ago, new tyres on, fang it around 2-3 seconds a lap quicker. You'd be doing 205s instead of 207s. So they're doing this because they think they can make it. The question is, can they? They think they can.
Well, with 4.5 laps remaining, there's certainly an option here to get to the end. I suppose we'll have to find out in just a few moments' time. We're just waiting to see what happens, really. If we get to 2 laps to go and we haven't seen the TTR cars pit, then they're good to the end. But there's still question marks over it for the next couple of laps here. Big battle still happening here with Zach Rattray-White at the head of this 4-car train. Got Ryan O'Sullivan with him, and then James Chastaneuf and Tom Freer.
Freer's got super fresh tyres as well. I called out when he stopped 3 laps ago, so he's got the tyres right in the peak of their grip, and James Chastaneuf does not, and that's the difference.
Yeah, 9-lap-old tyres versus 3-lap-old tyres, and Freer, after being up and down the field all race long, is finally back to the same position he started in. The only driver in the entire field to be able to say that.
O'Sullivan passed Rattray-White. And now looking to defend it down the front straight. Zach Rattray-White's like, if there's anything to the inside, I'm going there. Now I'm using the full width to turn into turn 1.
Yeah, look at the difference in speed at the apex. Rattray-White's able to carry a bit more and then slip alongside through turn 2. Up the inside at 3. He's clear by the time they get to the apex, and he parks it there. Stop Ryan O'Sullivan from getting back at him.
Tom Freer loves seeing that.
There. Certainly does. Caught right up, and well, he's still carrying the advantage of those fresh tyres. Let's see what kind of defense here Rattray-White puts on. A bit more rubber on the racing line and the braking zones here, but Zach is able to maintain the lead of the battle. Race control assigning a 10-second penalty to Loxton for the contact with Blacklock that we caught on live pictures a few laps ago.
Freer moves ahead of Sullivan. Freer's heading back towards the top 10.
Yeah, that car's looking so pacey right now. Barely any complaints from it on the exit at all, and so much more speed through the turns. Meanwhile, Warboys has continued to suffer problems coming onto the Ullman Straight. Another slowdown for him. And he again loses touch with Brady Myers and James Scott. Oh, Sullivan's picked up 1-2. Slips out of the way. Will fall behind Chastaneuf. With 3 laps to go, we still have Madison Down and Jake Maloney leading the way here with no sign of them having to come into the lane. I mean, at this point, if they do have to pit, they have lost the race already, because it's a long pit lane transit here at Sebring. And, I mean, they have... well, Leonage, we were saying before, would have been the effective race leader if the drivers in front of him had come into the lane, but evidently they had a bit more in the tank than we expected, and they were better at saving fuel than we expected. There's about a 19.5-second gap that Madison Down has over Leonage at the moment. And I think even with a tiny little splash to get to the end, they might still remain ahead. Remains to be seen. Maybe not, though.
The pace hasn't dropped off much in the last couple of laps for Down, Maloney and Myers either, as you're seeing Josh Anderson move past Brian Borg on the same strategy as Madison Down out front, having last stopped many laps ago. So Borg not managing it quite as efficiently as the absolute race leaders.
Look at this fight here. Tom Freer still attempting the move on Rattray White, former teammates at Vermilion. Now both going their own separate ways. Freer just rounds him up on the way into these corners, doesn't he? But it's all about the exit onto the Ullman Straight. And for the moment, Rattray White getting a better run through the right-hander. So I think Freer's going to struggle a little bit here. Again, the battle compresses through the final corner. I love seeing how drivers tackle that triple apex monster that is Sunset Bend, and how it leads them here into turn 1. Late move from Tom Freer. He gets ahead, but Rattray White will cut right back. Still side by side on the way in here, and contact in the braking zone. Rattray White stays ahead. Freer's going to start getting frustrated. Well, into the hairpin for the second last time for these guys. They'll stay the same. Kerr and Morris, they have come back together again. These guys have been keeping each other company through so much in this race. Blacklock, meanwhile, accelerating out of the hairpin, will pass Mark Poynton for 18th place, and Oceane Colangelo still remaining in P20, considering that she started dead last.
Just
Still
made 2
fantastic
spots.
race from her.
Just made 2 spots on Stenberg and Baker on the last lap, did Colangelo, because Baker and Stenberg trying to do the fuel save on some much older tyres. Colangelo on the more conventional strategy got past the both of them.
It looks like that's Riley Bilson that just passed Stenberg there, putting him back to 23rd. I think a bit slow there for Stenny. The white flag is out though. Final lap has begun.
Stenberg's got no fuel.
Yeah, looks like he wasn't able to save fuel like his teammates at the front of the field. Oh, it's starting to get leery here in the battle for 11th. Rattray White and Freer making contact side by side. Neither of them wants to give an inch here. Into the turn they come. Just threading the needle is Freer. Gets up the inside. Chastaneuf going to try and follow him through. Rattray White round the outside. He's got no choice but to let them both go.
These guys also starting the final lap. Isn't it ironic that Kurt Stenberg might run out of fuel because he's always running lean?
Jesus. Well, away we go through turn 1 there, and it looks like Ryan O'Sullivan is the next driver to have a go at Rattray White, but again, the cut back into turn 1. Oh, Rattray White is getting very muscly here in the final stages of the race. O'Sullivan stays ahead of Loxton, but I don't think he'll be too happy with how that turned out for him. Now Chastaneuf potentially stands a chance at grabbing 11th here if he can outbrake Tom Frere. The fresh tyres still there for Tom, but on the racing line comes Shasty. Older tyres, but he's able to maintain the pace. Into the marbles, though. Not able to get it done.
Those marbles are absolutely filthy. Madison Down and Jake Maloney showing no signs of slowing down on their final lap as well, heading towards the checkered flag for everyone. They're playing for keeps. 250 Ks of Sebring coming to an end.
Chastaneuf will defend there, and slide for O'Sullivan. Just running a little into Rattray White. And it looks like that's going to be the battle for 11th sorted. In the lead, though, haven't given him much airtime, but that's because they've been so far ahead. Madison Down and Jake Maloney leading home a 1-2 for Trans-Tasman Racing. They nailed the fuel save here in the final stages of the race. A brilliantly executed performance from the 77 and the 29. James Scott emerging in the background there to take 3rd place, a podium following the same strategy as those around him. Good job to preserve a podium despite his issues in the early stages of the race. And how about 6th place from William Sapstead? I mean, he emerged out of nowhere as one of those drivers on that strategy. And massive consistency, massive fuel saving, still able to maintain it. What a drive from the 81. What a drive from the 12 as well. And Zach Rattray White will just beat Brett Loxton to the line for 13th. Chastaneuf, in the end, gets Loxton both in Split 2 and Split 1 tonight.
Blake Warboys would have been on the podium without those 2 super costly slowdowns. You got to give credit to how well he seems to have managed the fuel and the tyres and his pace as well, because without those 2 little bobbles, he would have had Brady Myers and James Scott for lunch and be on the podium here.
Yeah, a bit of a missed opportunity for the number 63 there, but Sebring can certainly bite. I think James Scott is out of fuel there. Just crawling to a stop through Big Bend as Kurt Stenberg, it looks like, will be our last finisher, just crawling his way to the line. Scott Gamble
get out and push.
Just
Jack
behind
Brabham
him.
did in 1959 to become the first Australian world champion here at Sebring.
He certainly did. Fact that not many seem to be aware of is that Sebring is technically a former Formula One venue. Well, that's all the finishes then. Round 4 of V8 SCOPS at Sebring will go to Trans-Tasman Racing in 2025, with Madison Down taking victory. And if Jay Kennedy was here, I'm sure we'd have a stat showing that this was his X amount of race wins from that. But Jake Maloney and James Scott will complete the podium behind, with Brady Myers and Blake Warboys running at your top 5. Sapstead, one of the stars of this race here, getting 6th place following that fuel-saving strategy that won the race for TTR. Leonage taking 7th, first of the drivers who had the more conventional strategy towards the end. Anderson will take the fastest lap of the race, but unfortunately miss out on winning. Borg and Ross round out your top 10.
Other side of the page, Tom Frere made some late passes to 11th. Had James Chastaneuf, Zach Rattray White, Brett Loxton and Ryan O'Sullivan. Well, Rattray White and Loxton were leaning doors on each other, crossing the checkered flag, and in the end, the result is a 100th of a second difference between those two. And then, Ryan O'Sullivan, Matthew Morris, Mark Poynton, Oshan Colangelo getting up to 18th late on in that race, moving ahead of Liam Kerr, and I'm going to guess Riley Bilson potentially as well there. So Liam Kerr, Ewan Baker, 19th, 20th.
Indeed. Certainly went all right for Baker despite his issues. Still 8 positions up. Same for Jordan Severus with Bilson and Blacklock 22nd and 23rd. Stenberg, our last finisher on the lead lap. Sebastian Varndell and Ryan Mueller will finish a lap down. Scott Gamble 3 laps down. O'Shea retiring late on, with Corey McFarlane also retiring due to damage. Lockhart Brownlee 30 laps ago, unfortunately crashing out of the race after bringing out the second, or was it the third safety car? I can't quite remember. Corey Preston, Tyson Broad and Robbie Gibbs could not make it very far into the race. Gibbs was out on lap 1. Tyson Broad bringing out the first safety car, stricken the incident at the end of lap 2. Well, that rounds out our results, and we have interviews awaiting for our winning drivers. And the first of them is Madison Down, who takes his 34th V8SCOPS win, if our stats are to be trusted. Congratulations, Matt. Goodness me, the fuel saving in that final stint was immense. When did you guys realize that that was the way to go?
As soon as that safety car called, we knew we were kind of close-ish to the critical lap, and the way the race was panning out with a lot of safety cars, we were almost certain there'd be another. Didn't turn out to be the case, but as we went further down that path, we, especially Jake Miney and I, increasingly wanted it to stay green because we could see we could manage it. It was a huge number to manage. We had to save around about 20 litres to get home, so it was an absolutely enormous number, but thankfully... yeah, car was really good. We could keep the mid-corner speed up and make that number work. And the other thing was tyres, but probably, I don't know if you guys picked up in commentary, but really, really hot track. So
oh yeah,
I know I did a little skid at the end there, but only 8% left on the left rear tyre for me. So yeah, really hurt the tyres big time over a stint that long.
Yeah, indeed. Super hot temperature. And yeah, it looked like the tyres were suffering all the way through this field. Well, Sebring has traditionally been a successful track for Trans-Tasman racing. You've taken plenty of wins here in various categories in the past, and leading home a 1-2 with yourself and Jake. It did come at the expense of Josh, who managed to put it on pole, but regardless, an excellent result for the team and another great haul of championship points. This will put you ahead of Jake Burton in the drivers' standings.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, well, good team result. Obviously, we would have wanted a few more cars up there. We clearly had a really good car tonight, and you know, having been in the other Pro Invitational series, having already visited this track, thankfully we're in a good spot for this series, and we were quite fast in that championship as well. So to roll off the truck here and still be fast, made a few little improvements for this series, and yeah, still running up the front. I mean, unfortunate for Josh. Probably we thought we were taking a punt on strategy with a fuel save that big, like, you know, previously 20 litre fuel save far out. Like, to get home on a number like that is bloody hard. So we were thinking we were the ones taking the risk, but the way it panned out, we were able to make that work, and actually that was the way to go. So unfortunate for him, he had mega qualifying speed, but yeah, really good team result. And as always, massive thank you to VRS and all of our other sponsors as well for the partnership over the course of the year. It means a lot to all of us.
Yeah, big thanks for joining us, Madison. And look, I've just done a bit of napkin math, and if my calculations are correct, you guys saved on average about 690 mils of fuel per lap on that final stint. That's a massive number. Congratulations on the victory, mate.
Yeah, so we were 4.7 litres a lap in my car, and at the start of that stint, I was hitting 4.0, so that's about spot on. Thankfully, we were able to get a couple laps in lieu thanks to that safety car, so it wasn't quite that, but yeah, at the end, I was able to run fight out the last 5 or 6 laps. So yeah, really, really proud of what I achieved, and also Jake Maloney, he did a great job pushing behind me. But thanks, guys. I look forward to watching that one back.
Yeah, and we look forward to chatting to you again, potentially at Belle Isle, Madison. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Madison down there in the winner's slot. In P2, it was Jake Maloney, car 29, stood up by with David Haynes.
Well, congratulations there. Bold stuff, but perfectly executed, and a bit of teamwork makes the dream work as well.
Yeah, awesome result by the team, and yeah, car and strategy was quite good. I don't think the car was particularly fast at the start of the stint, but it held onto the tyres really well, and I was having a look like I was the fastest car on track, even in those last few laps, even compared to the guys that had already pitted, so it looked after it well.
And that sort of fuel number that you had to hit, if you weren't, in the pack with Brady and Madison, would have been a little bit more difficult potentially?
I think it wasn't too bad. Like even if we're by myself, yeah, it's pretty easy to save fuel around here, and but yeah, being in the pack with those guys worked out well, and Matt got away a little bit there, which yeah, it was good for him, and yeah, he was able to get the win.
The 3 early safety cars was the strategy meeting, just look for the critical lap number, and that's what we're doing, that's where we're going from?
The strategy was just panic, and when the safety car was called, and try and work out what to do. Some of us got it right. I think Brady and Ando had the trouble of being in the lead and not knowing what to do. It's tough when you're the leader, so I think Matt and I had the advantage of being back in the pack, so we could just sort of pit every time, and it wasn't as hard to make the decision for us.
And on such a hot day with a long run, what's the car feeling in clean air in the pack? What are the trouble spots for management?
Just any of the traction zones and looking after that left rear tyre. It was down to the canvas right at the end and getting quite a few tyre warnings in those last couple of laps. But no, just the fuel saving helps look after the tyres as well. Just drive it straight and don't make any mistakes.
If you pay for the whole tyre, use the whole tyre. You pay for the whole fuel tank, use the whole fuel tank. Congratulations and well done.
Yeah, thanks guys, and thanks to the team and Simracing for being on board. Yeah, good to get them another podium.
Beautiful. We'll catch you out next time.
Cheers, guys.
Nick Maloney there from second place. And from third, we have James Scott in car number 1, returning once again to the SimSpeed commentary booth. Again, James, you were one of the drivers that had to stretch the tank in that final stint.
Yeah, I didn't really know how it was going to play out. There was a few of us that pit under that safety car, then a few of them pit again, midway through that last stint, which, I had no idea how it was all going to work out. But, yeah, it seemed like we probably got the strategy right. Being that, I don't think, being the lead car would have been tough. So, sucks to be those guys that sort of... didn't really get a chance to sort of judge what everyone else was doing, but we played it all right.
Certainly did. Sebring is kind to some, not so kind to others. It must have been frustrating behind the wheel, at the start of that stint there, just seeing how many slower cars were up ahead of you. But then I suppose the other side of the coin is it gave you a bit of an extra chance to fuel save.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few guys that probably qualified a little bit further back, but found themselves running at the front just without pitting. But I didn't really notice them all that much. We were saving so much that, they were all sort of doing the same speed. So, it wasn't too bad. It's easy to save some fuel with the long braking zones here. So, yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Belle Isle up next, a track that many of us enjoy. It's going to be a very short sprint round, so fuel saving and strategy is not going to be part of the equation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it should be good. I think we've had a few of the longer races this year, good to see what we can do with some sprint rounds. Haven't driven this car at Belle Isle yet, I don't think, so it'll be interesting to see what the car feels like. Probably the first time. Montreal was sort of a little bit of curb usage, but Belle Isle's quite bumpy, so we'll see how it goes.
We certainly will. Thanks for joining us, James. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Shout out to all the sponsors, Aussie Broadband, Westfield, and Logitech G. Great to have those guys on board. All the guys at the Chiefs, thanks to those guys putting it all on behind the scenes. You guys, the broadcast, well done to the other people on the podium, and the series admin people as well.
Thanks very much for joining us. James Scott, third place here tonight. And we will find our way to the end of the show here, David. Another incredible round of V8 SCOPS for 2025. But of course, we do go to Detroit Belle Isle for the next round. Jay Kennedy's given us some lovely new B-roll for this round preview. And, well, it's going to be a ultra sprinty kind of round here. Definitely a short round, 70Ks and 150Ks, the two races scheduled for V8 SCOPS.
Yeah, from one racetrack I've raced at to another racetrack I've been to and ate a delicious ice cream at. Big fan of Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle, but hopefully drivers understand the risks and can keep it clean enough when we go racing there.
Indeed. We hope that you all join us for that one. It's going to be a bit of a earlier start time for this one on the Sunday, June the 1st. Later, sorry, my apologies. Got my daylight savings and all that mixed up here in WA. We both have that kind of problem, don't we, David? You being in Queensland. But yeah, special time. Make sure to tune in at 7:15 Australian Eastern on Sunday, June the 1st. Thanks very much for joining us here, whatever platform you've come from. We appreciate you, and we hope to see you next time. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes alongside me in the comms box. Thanks to Cam Dance for joining me for the start of the show as well. Dan Yeaman behind the scenes here on SimSpeed TV. See you next time.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.